Hi everyone, welcome to Serial Soul. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to talk about a movie that came out almost 30 years ago, and yet somehow feels more important right now than it did when it first hit theaters. I want to argue that The Truman Show is not just a funny movie about a guy stuck on a TV set. It is actually a mirror held up to every single one of us. Through its look at manufactured fear, corporate control, fake relationships, constant surveillance, and the terrifying comfort of never questioning the world around you. This film makes the case that most people are living inside invisible prisons of their own. Prisons built by society, by media, by the systems we never think to question. And the scariest part is that just like Truman, we accept the reality we are presented with because we have never been shown anything else. Over the course of this video, we are going to break down every single layer of this movie, from its deeply hidden messages about God and control, to how it predicted the world of social media before social media even existed, to the real-life psychiatric condition the film actually created. This is going to be a long one, so sit back, relax, and let this play in the background if you need to. But before we begin, I would just like to kindly ask you all to subscribe. It is completely free, and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community we have managed to build. Anyway, that is enough. Let us begin. Section 1. We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. Setting the stage. The Truman Show came out on June 5, 1998. It was directed by Peter Weir, the same man who gave us Dead Poets Society, and it was written by Andrew Niccol, who also wrote and directed Gattaca. The movie stars Jim Carrey as Truman Burbank, and the rest of the cast includes Laura Linney as his wife Merrill, Ed Harris as the show's creator Christoph, Noah Emmerich as his best friend Marlon, Natasha McElhone as Sylvia, Holland Taylor as his mother, and Paul Giamatti as one of the control room operators. The film was made on a budget of $60 million, and it went on to earn over $264 million worldwide. It sits at a 94% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and Metacritic gave it a 90 out of 100, meaning it received what they consider universal acclaim from critics. Roger Ebert, one of the most well-known film critics of all time, gave the movie a perfect 4 out of 4 stars and compared it to Forrest Gump. Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times went even further and called it the best movie of 1998. At the Academy Awards, the film earned nominations for Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Ed Harris, and Best Original Screenplay. Jim Carrey won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Drama, and Ed Harris won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. So right from the start, we are not dealing with some small film that slipped under the radar. This was a massive hit with both audiences and critics. And yet, so many people watched it, enjoyed it, laughed at the funny parts, and completely missed what the movie was actually trying to tell them. So here is the setup. Truman Burbank is a man living in the small, beautiful seaside town of Sea Haven. Every single morning he steps out of his front door, waves to his neighbors, greets them with a cheerful good morning, gets into his car, and drives to work at his job as an insurance salesman. He has a lovely wife named Merrill. He has a best friend named Marlon, who he has known since they were kids. His mother lives nearby. His streets are spotless, the lawns are perfectly cut. The houses are painted in soft, warm colors. The weather is almost always perfect. From the outside looking in, Truman Burbank has a good life. A simple, safe, comfortable, and predictable life. But here is the thing, none of it is real. Every single part of Truman's world is fake. The town of Sea Haven is not a real town. It is an enormous set built inside a gigantic dome, so big that it is one of the largest structures ever built in this fictional world. His neighbors are not real neighbors. They are actors. His wife Meryl is not his real wife. She is an actress being paid to play the part. His best friend Marlon is not his real best friend. He is an actor too, reading lines that are being fed to him through an earpiece. Even Truman's own mother is an actress. Every single person Truman has ever known, every person he has ever spoken to, every person he has ever trusted, is a paid performer whose job is to keep him inside this bubble and make sure he never finds out the truth. And the man pulling all the strings is Christoph, played by Ed Harris. Christoph is the creator of The Truman Show, a live television program that has been running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for Truman's entire life. Christoph sits in a control room that is built inside Sea Haven's fake moon, looking down on Truman's world from above, controlling everything. He controls when the sun comes up. He controls when it rains. He controls the traffic. He controls who walks past Truman on the street. He controls what is on the radio. He controls what Truman sees, hears, and experiences every single day of his life. And the whole thing is being watched by billions of people across the globe. Truman is the most watched person on the planet, and he has absolutely no idea. Now here is where it gets even more unsettling. Truman was not just put on this show as a baby. He was adopted by the corporation that runs the show. In the film, it is stated that Truman was chosen from one of 6 unwanted pregnancies and became the first child to ever be legally adopted by a corporation. Think about that for a second. A human being, adopted not by a family, but by a company. Owned not by parents who love him, but by a business that wants to make money off of him. From the very first second of his life, Truman Burbank was not a person. He was a product. And to keep Truman inside this bubble, the show uses 5,000 hidden cameras. These cameras are everywhere. They are in his car's dashboard. They are inside his neighbor's garbage can. They are hidden in the buttons on people's clothing. They are built into the struts and beams of his office at work. They are even hidden inside his wedding ring. That black ring that Truman wears on his finger, the one that was given to him by his father before his father supposedly died, has a tiny camera inside of it. Every single move Truman makes, every single word he says, every private moment he thinks he is having, is being recorded and broadcast to the entire world. Now, what makes the design of this world so brilliant is the look and feel of Sea Haven itself. Director Peter Weir made a very specific choice when it came to how this town would look. He drew heavy inspiration from Norman Rockwell paintings and postcards from the 1960s to create a town that feels almost too perfect. Everything looks like a picture from a magazine. The houses are these beautiful pastel-colored homes with white picket fences and large front yards. The people are always smiling. The streets are always clean. There is no crime. There is no mess. There is no chaos. It looks like a dream version of small-town America, the kind of place you would see on a postcard and think, I wish I lived there. And here is a detail that makes this even more interesting. The movie was actually filmed in a real place called Seaside, Florida. Seaside is located in the Florida Panhandle, and it is what is known as a master-planned community. That means it is a town that was designed from scratch to look and feel a certain way. Every house follows a specific style. Every street is laid out according to a plan. The whole place was built to create a specific feeling of perfection and community. Peter Weir's wife, Wendy Stites, introduced him to Seaside during production, and Weir immediately saw it as the perfect location. He moved the production offices there and filmed most of the movie in that town. So the place where they filmed a movie about a man living in a fake, carefully designed world was itself a real, carefully designed world. That layer of meaning was not lost on Weir, and it should not be lost on us either. Now, the most important line in this entire movie, the one line that sums up everything the film is trying to say, comes from Christoph himself. During an interview within the film, Christoph is asked how it is possible that Truman has never figured out that his world is fake. And Christoph's answer is chilling. He says, "We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that." Read that again. We accept the reality of the world with which we are presented. Christoph is not just talking about Truman. He is talking about all of us. He is saying that human beings, by nature, do not question the world they are born into. If you grow up in a certain town, you believe that town is normal. If you grow up around certain people, you believe those people are genuine. If you are told certain things your entire life, you believe those things are true. Not because you have checked, not because you have investigated, but simply because it is all you have ever known. You accept it because you were presented with it, and nobody ever gave you a reason to look any deeper. And that is the entire foundation of The Truman Show. It is a movie about a man who lives in a fake world, surrounded by fake people, controlled by a man he does not even know exists, being watched by billions of strangers he has never met. And the reason it works, the reason Truman never catches on for almost 30 years of his life, is because the lie started the moment he was born. He never had a single second of truth to compare it to. The fake world is the only world he knows. So to him, it is not fake at all. To him, it is just life. And the movie is asking you a very simple question. How do you know your life is any different? How do you know that the things you believe are true just because you have always believed them? How do you know the world you see every day is the real one? How do you know the people around you are showing you who they really are? How do you know the life you're living is the one you actually chose, and not just the one that was handed to you? That is the question this movie is really asking. And for the rest of this video, we are going to go layer by layer, pulling apart every single hidden message buried inside this film. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But what most people do not realize is that the ideas behind The Truman Show are not new at all. They actually go back over 2,000 years, to an ancient philosopher who told an almost identical story about prisoners trapped inside a cave, watching shadows on a wall, and believing those shadows were real life. Section 2. Plato's Cave in a TV Dome. The philosophy you didn't know you were watching. Most people watch The Truman Show and think it is a clever, original idea. A guy living in a fake world and not knowing it. That is a pretty wild concept, right? But here is the thing. This idea is not new, not even close. Over 2,400 years ago, a man in ancient Greece told an almost identical story. His name was Plato, and the story he told is called The Allegory of the Cave. It comes from a work called The Republic, specifically Book 7, which was written around 375 BC. And once you understand this story, you will never watch The Truman Show the same way again, because you will realize that Peter Weir and Andrew Niccol did not just make a movie about reality television. They took one of the oldest and most important ideas in the entire history of human thought and brought it to life on screen. In fact, the official website of the 2022 Cannes Film Festival, one of the most respected film events in the world, described The Truman Show as, and I am quoting this directly, a modern reflection of Plato's cave. So this is not some stretch or fan theory. This connection is recognized at the highest level of film discussion. Let us break it down piece by piece. Plato's story goes like this. Imagine a group of people who have been locked inside a dark cave since the day they were born. They are chained to the floor in such a way that they cannot move their bodies or turn their heads. They can only look in one direction, straight ahead at the wall of the cave in front of them. That is all they can see, just the wall. Now behind these prisoners, there is a fire burning, and between the fire and the prisoners, there is a raised walkway. People walk along this walkway carrying objects, things like statues of animals and people and trees. The fire casts light on these objects, and that light creates shadows on the wall that the prisoners are staring at. So the prisoners see these shadows moving across the wall in front of them. They see what looks like people moving. They see what looks like animals walking. They see shapes and figures shifting and changing. And here is the key part. Because the prisoners have been chained in this cave since birth. Because they have never seen anything else. Because they have never turned around. Because they have never seen the fire, or the walkway, or the people carrying objects. They believe that the shadows on the wall are real. To them, the shadows are not shadows at all. The shadows are life. The shadows are reality. They do not know there is anything behind them. They do not know there is a fire. They do not even know they are inside a cave. As far as they are concerned, the wall and the shadows are all there is. Now, does that sound familiar? Because it should. Truman Burbank is living the exact same situation. He has been inside his cave, the Sea Haven Dome, since the day he was born. He has been chained, not by metal chains on his wrists, but by something far more powerful. He has been chained by the fact that he has never known anything else. The actors around him are the shadows on the wall. They look real. They act real. They feel real. But they are not real. They are projections, performances, illusions, designed to keep Truman staring at the wall and never turning around. The dome itself is the cave. It has walls, it has a ceiling, it has a fake sky painted to look like the real one. And just like the prisoners in Plato's story, Truman has no idea he is trapped, because the prison is the only world he has ever known. But Plato did not stop there. His story continues. He says, what would happen if one of the prisoners was suddenly freed? What if someone unchained one of them and forced them to stand up, turn around, and look at the fire for the first time? Plato says it would be painful. The light of the fire would hurt their eyes after a lifetime of staring at a dark wall. They would be confused. They would not understand what they were seeing. They might even want to turn back around and go back to watching the shadows, because at least the shadows made sense to them. At least the shadows were comfortable and familiar. And this is exactly what happens to Truman. His awakening does not happen all at once. It starts with small, confusing moments that do not make sense. A stage light falls out of the sky and crashes in the street right in front of him. The radio in his car picks up a strange signal, and he hears voices describing his exact movements as he makes them, saying things like he is turning left on Lancaster now. He sees his father, the man he watched drown at sea when he was a child, walking around the streets near his office, dressed as a homeless man, only for the man to be grabbed and dragged away before Truman can reach him. Rain starts falling on him, and only on him, following him as he walks, while the areas just a few steps away from him stay completely dry. Each one of these moments is like a crack of light sneaking into the cave. Each one is a tiny glimpse of the truth leaking through the wall of lies. And just like Plato described, these moments do not make Truman feel happy or excited. They make him feel confused. They make him feel scared. They make him feel like something is deeply, deeply wrong with the world around him. And that feeling, that sinking gut feeling that things are not what they seem, is the beginning of his awakening. Now here is where Plato's story gets even more relevant. Plato says that if the freed prisoner was then dragged all the way out of the cave and into the sunlight for the first time, the experience would be overwhelming. The sun would be blinding. Everything would be too bright, too much. too different from the dark cave they had spent their entire life in. The freed prisoner would need time to adjust. First, they would only be able to look at shadows in the outside world. Then they would be able to look at reflections in water. Then, slowly, they would be able to look at actual objects. And finally, after enough time, they would be able to look directly at the sun itself and understand that the sun is the source of everything. The source of light, the source of life, the source of truth. Truman goes through this exact same process, just stretched out over time, instead of happening all at once. He does not wake up one morning and suddenly understand everything. It happens gradually. He notices the light that falls from the sky, but he accepts the explanation he is given and moves on. He hears the radio signal, but he is confused and does not know what to do with it. He sees his father on the street, but the man is taken away before he can get answers. Each moment brings him a little closer to the truth, but each moment also brings more confusion and more fear. He is adjusting to the light, one painful step at a time, and the people around him are doing everything they can to push him back into the darkness. And that brings us to the most chilling part of Plato's story. Plato asks, what would happen if the freed prisoner went back into the cave and tried to tell the other prisoners what he had seen? What if he went back and said, listen, those shadows on the wall are not real. There is a whole world out there. There is a sun. There is truth. Everything you think you know is a lie. Plato says the other prisoners would not believe him. They would think he was crazy. They would think something had gone wrong with his eyes, that leaving the cave had damaged him. And Plato goes even further. He says if anyone tried to free the other prisoners and lead them out of the cave, the prisoners would resist. They might even try to kill the person trying to free them, because people do not want to hear that their entire reality is a lie. It is easier to stay chained. It is more comfortable to keep watching the shadows. And this is exactly what happens in the Truman Show. When Truman starts questioning his world, when he starts saying things feel off, when he starts pushing back against the script, the people around him do not help him. They shut him down. His wife Meryl dismisses his concerns and tells him he is not making any sense. She suggests he might need to see someone, as if he is the one with the problem. His best friend Marlon sits with him on a bridge and delivers a heartfelt speech about how he would never lie to Truman, how Truman is the closest thing to a brother he has ever had. And the whole time, Christoph is in the control room, feeding Marlon every single word through an earpiece. The speech is not real. The emotion is not real. It is all designed to make Truman doubt himself and stay put. They are trying to chain him back to the wall. They are trying to get him to stop looking at the light and go back to watching the shadows. There is one person in the entire movie who tries to do what Plato described, who tries to go back into the cave and free the prisoner. That person is Sylvia, played by Natasha McElhone. Sylvia was originally just a background actress on the show, someone who was never supposed to interact with Truman in any meaningful way. But during their time together at college, Truman was drawn to her. He felt something genuine with her, something he had never felt with anyone else. And Sylvia felt it too. She could see that Truman was a real person, trapped in a fake world, and she could not stand it. She tried to tell him the truth. She tried to tell him that everything around him was a lie, that his life was a television show, that he needed to get out. But before she could finish, she was grabbed and physically removed from the set. The show's crew dragged her away right in front of Truman, and a man claiming to be her father appeared out of nowhere and said she was mentally unwell and that they were moving to Fiji. Just like that, the one person who tried to free the prisoner was taken away. And what does Plato say happens to the person who tries to free the others? The other prisoners turn on them. They reject them. They call them crazy. That is exactly what happened to Sylvia. She was removed, silenced, and discredited. And Truman was left alone in his cave, more confused than ever. But there is one crucial difference between Plato's story and the Truman Show, and this difference is what makes the movie so powerful. In Plato's version, the prisoner is freed by someone else. Someone comes along, unchains him, and drags him toward the light. The prisoner does not free himself, but Truman does. Nobody saves Truman. Nobody comes back into the cave and leads him out. Sylvia tried and was taken away. The rest of the people in his life are actors who benefit from keeping him inside. Christoph certainly does not want him to leave. The audience watching the show at home does not lift a finger to help him. In the end, Truman frees himself. He figures it out on his own. He overcomes his fear on his own. He walks out of the cave on his own 2 feet, not because someone dragged him out, but because he decided that the truth, no matter how scary and painful, was better than a comfortable lie. And that is what makes this movie more than just a retelling of Plato's cave. It is an upgrade. Plato told us that someone needs to come and free us. The Truman Show says no. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to unchain you and walk you toward the truth. If you want to be free, you have to do it yourself. You have to be the one who questions the shadows. You have to be the one who turns around. You have to be the one who walks out of the cave. And that is a far scarier message because it puts the responsibility directly on you. Plato wrote his story to make people think about the difference between what we believe is real and what actually is real. The Truman Show does the same thing, but it wraps it inside a story so entertaining and so human that you feel it in your chest. You do not need to have read a single page of ancient philosophy to understand what this movie is saying. You just need to watch a man look up at a painted sky and realize that the world he trusted was never real. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the cave is only half the story, because every cave needs someone running it. Every prison needs a warden. And in Truman's world, that warden sits inside a fake moon, watches from above, controls the weather, and genuinely believes he is doing the right thing. His name is Christoph, and the movie uses him to ask one of the biggest questions humanity has ever wrestled with. What happens when the person controlling your life truly believes they are protecting you? Section 3. Christoph, the false god who controls your world. Every story needs a villain, but the best villains are not the ones who think they are evil. The best villains are the ones who genuinely believe they are doing the right thing. The ones who look you in the eye, strip away your freedom, control every part of your life, and then tell you it was all for your own good. That is exactly what makes Christoph one of the most unsettling characters in movie history. He is not some cartoon bad guy, twirling a mustache and laughing about his evil plan. He is calm, he is thoughtful, he is soft-spoken. He speaks about Truman with what sounds like real love and real care. And that is what makes him so terrifying. Because Christoph has spent 30 years controlling every single detail of another human being's life, and he does not see anything wrong with it. In his mind, he is not a villain at all. He is a protector. He is a creator. He is, in his own eyes, something very close to God. And the movie knows this. In fact, the movie goes out of its way to make absolutely sure you see it too. Let us start with the most obvious clue, one that is hiding right there in plain sight. His name. Christoph. Say it slowly. Christ-of. It is a direct play on the name of Jesus Christ. Some people who have studied this film have pointed out that the name can be read as meaning the Christ of Truman's world. He is the one who created Truman's reality. He is the one who watches over it. He is the one who decides what happens and when. Others have read it differently as Christ-off, meaning a false version of Christ, someone who does the things a god can do, but none of the things a god should do. Either way you read it, the connection is clear. The filmmakers named this character after Christ on purpose. It is not a coincidence, and it is not subtle. It is the first signal that this movie is doing something much deeper than telling a story about a television show. Now look at where Christoph operates from. His control room is built inside the fake moon that hangs over Sea Haven. Think about that. He literally sits above Truman's world, looking down from the sky. He is up there, in the heavens, watching everything. He sees all. He knows all. He controls all. That is not just a cool production design choice. That is a deliberate visual statement. Throughout the entire history of religion and art, God has been shown as a figure who exists above, who looks down on his creation from the sky. Christoph is placed in the exact same position. He is above. Truman is below. And the distance between them is the distance between a creator and his creation. And the movie does not stop there. In one of the most important scenes in the entire film, right at the very end, Christoph speaks directly to Truman for the first and only time. Truman has just sailed across the ocean, survived a massive storm, and crashed his boat into the wall of the dome. He has found a staircase and a door. He is standing at the exit, about to leave the only world he has ever known. And that is when Christoph's voice booms down from above. It comes from the sky. Truman looks up, and in that moment, the camera shows us what is behind Christoph as he speaks. It is the sun. It is clouds. It is a bright, glowing sky. This is the exact same image that has been used in religious paintings and artwork for hundreds of years to show God speaking to man from heaven. The filmmakers framed this shot on purpose. They wanted you to see Christoph as God in that moment, not a real God, but the kind of God that this movie is warning you about. A God who creates a beautiful world, fills it with rules, fills it with fear, and then tells you to stay inside because the world beyond is dangerous. And what does Christoph say in that moment? He says to Truman, "There's no more truth out there than there is in the world I created for you." Let that sink in. He is telling Truman that the real world has nothing better to offer, that the world outside is full of pain and lies and suffering, that the world Christoph built is safer, cleaner, and better. And in a twisted way, he is not entirely wrong. Sea Haven is safe. There is no crime. There is no poverty. There is no violence. The weather is beautiful. Everyone smiles. From a surface level, it is paradise. But the cost of that paradise is Truman's entire freedom. The cost of that safety is that Truman has never made a single real choice in his life. He did not choose his wife. The show chose her for him. He did not choose his best friend. The show assigned one to him. He did not choose his career. The show placed him in it. He did not even choose to be afraid of the ocean. That fear was manufactured, put inside him on purpose. Christoph gave Truman a perfect world, but he took away the one thing that makes life worth living: the right to choose your own path, even if that path leads to pain. Now let us talk about what Christoph actually does throughout the film, because his actions are where the God comparison really comes to life. Christoph controls the weather inside the dome. When he wants it to be sunny, it is sunny. When he wants it to rain, it rains. During the climax of the movie, when Truman is trying to escape by sailing across the water, Christoph creates a storm. Not a small storm, a violent, terrifying storm with massive waves and lightning and wind, so strong it nearly flips the boat over. Christoph is literally using the weather as a weapon to stop Truman from leaving. Now think about the oldest stories in human history. Think about the stories in the Bible, in Greek mythology, in ancient legends from cultures all over the world. What do the gods do when they are angry? What do they do when a human disobeys them or tries to rise above their place? They send storms. They send floods. They send lightning from the sky. Christoph is doing exactly the same thing. He is using the tools of a god to punish a man who dared to question his creator. And here's the part that really shows you who Christoph is. During that storm, when the waves are crashing over Truman's boat, and Truman is being thrown around and nearly drowning, one of the crew members in the control room tells Christoph to stop. The crew member is horrified. He says they cannot let Truman die on live television. And Christoph's response is cold. He says, he was born in front of a live audience. In that single line, Christoph reveals everything about how he sees Truman. Truman is not a person to him. Truman is a production. Truman was born on camera. He has lived on camera. And if he has to die on camera, then so be it. The show matters more than the man. The creation matters more than the person trapped inside it. Christoph would rather let Truman drown than let him be free. And in that moment, the mask comes off. The gentle, soft-spoken creator who talked about protecting Truman and giving him a beautiful life is revealed as someone who would kill Truman before he would ever let him go. But what makes Christoph truly fascinating is that even after all of this, even after nearly killing Truman with a manufactured storm, he still does not see himself as the villain. When the storm fails and Truman survives and reaches the wall of the dome, Christoph does not scream or rage. He does not send people to drag Truman back. Instead, he talks to him, gently, calmly, almost lovingly. He tells Truman about the world he created for him. He tells him there is nothing better out there. He tells Truman that he knows him, that he has watched him his entire life, that he has been with him since before he was born. And in Christoph's voice, you can hear something that sounds real. It sounds like a father talking to a son. It sounds like someone who genuinely cares. And that is the most dangerous part. Because Christoph's love is real, but it is the wrong kind of love. It is the kind of love that says, I know what is best for you, so you should never leave. It is the kind of love that says, I will keep you safe, but only if you stay inside the walls I built. It is the kind of love that puts your comfort above your freedom and your safety above your growth. It is the kind of love that a cage shows to a bird. Yes, the bird is protected from the wind and the rain and the predators outside, but the bird cannot fly. And a bird that cannot fly is not really a bird at all. The movie is very clearly asking us to think about this on a bigger level. Christoph is not just a TV producer. He represents anyone or anything that controls your life while claiming it is for your benefit. He could be a government that keeps you afraid, so you never question its power. He could be a corporation that keeps you consuming products, so you never realize you are the product. He could be a society that tells you what success looks like, so you spend your whole life chasing someone else's dream. He could be a social media algorithm that shows you exactly what it wants you to see, so you never leave the app. Christoph is any system that builds a comfortable prison around you, and then tells you the prison is actually paradise. And the name of the town itself tells you this: Sea Haven. People who have studied this film have pointed out that Sea Haven is very close to being an anagram of as heaven. The town is designed to look and feel like heaven. It is beautiful, it is peaceful, it is perfect. But it is a false heaven. A heaven with walls, a heaven with cameras, a heaven with a creator who will try to drown you if you attempt to leave. Now there is one more detail about Christoph that most people miss, and it adds another layer to this character. Ed Harris was not even the original choice for this role. The part of Christoph was originally given to Dennis Hopper. Hopper actually started filming the movie, but he left the production in April 1997 due to what was described as creative differences. Ed Harris was brought in as a last-minute replacement, after several other actors had turned down the role. And honestly, looking back, it is hard to imagine anyone else playing Christoph. Dennis Hopper was known for playing loud, intense, unpredictable characters. He would have brought a very different energy to the role. But Ed Harris brought something far more unsettling. He brought quiet. He brought calm. He brought a softness that makes you almost want to believe him when he says he cares about Truman. And that is exactly what makes the character work. A loud, screaming villain is easy to spot. A quiet, gentle one, who truly believes he is right, is the one who fools you. That is the kind of God this movie is warning you about. Not the one who roars and punishes. The one who whispers and says, "Stay here. I will take care of you. You do not need to see what is out there." Truman's answer to Christoph is the most important moment in the entire film. He looks up at the sky, at the voice of his creator, at the only authority figure who has ever had true power over his life, and he does not argue. He does not fight. He does not scream. He simply smiles, says his famous line, "In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." And he walks through the door into complete darkness. He chooses the unknown. He chooses freedom over safety. He chooses truth over comfort. And in doing so, he rejects his God. Not because God was cruel, but because God was controlling. And no amount of love makes control acceptable. Ed Harris later said in interviews that he saw Christoph as someone who had lost perspective over the years, someone who started with a vision and slowly became consumed by it. And that might be the scariest thing about this character, because it means Christoph was not always like this. He did not wake up one day and decide to be a tyrant. It happened gradually, one decision at a time, one small act of control at a time, until one day he was willing to murder a man with a storm rather than let him walk through a door. And he still thought he was the good guy. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Christoph did not just use cameras and weather and actors to keep Truman inside. He used something much darker, something much more personal, something that cut so deep into Truman's mind and heart that it stayed with him for decades and nearly stopped him from ever leaving. Christoph used fear, and the way he built that fear, piece by piece, starting when Truman was just a child, might be the most disturbing thing in the entire movie. Section 4. How fear was weaponized to build a prison without walls. Here is a question that should bother you. If Sea Haven has no locked gates, no barbed wire fences, no armed guards standing at every corner, then how exactly do you keep a grown man trapped inside for almost 30 years? Think about it. Truman is not in handcuffs. He is not in a jail cell. He can walk anywhere he wants inside the dome. He has a car. He has legs. There is nothing physically stopping him from just getting up one morning and driving to the edge of town and leaving. So why doesn't he? What is keeping him there? The answer is the most brilliant and the most disturbing part of the entire movie. Christoph does not need walls to keep Truman inside. He does not need locks or chains or guards. Because he has something far more powerful than any of those things. He has fear. Not the kind of fear you feel when someone jumps out and scares you. Not the quick, sharp kind that goes away after a few seconds. The deep kind. The kind that lives inside your chest and never leaves. The kind that was put there when you were so young that you do not even remember a time before it existed. The kind that feels so natural, so much a part of who you are, that you do not even think of it as fear anymore. You just think of it as common sense. You just think of it as the way things are. That is the kind of fear Christoph builds inside Truman. And he starts building it when Truman is just a little boy. The most important scene in this entire discussion happens when Truman is a child. Young Truman is out on a boat with his father. They are on the water together, sailing. And here is the key detail. Young Truman is not afraid. Not even a little bit. In fact, it is the opposite. Young Truman loves the water. He is excited. He is adventurous. He is the one who wants to keep going further out. When his father warns him about a storm coming, young Truman does not care. He wants to keep sailing. He wants to see what is out there. This is who Truman naturally is at his core. A curious, fearless, adventurous kid who wants to explore the world. Remember that, because it matters. That is the real Truman, before Christoph got to him. And then it happens. The storm hits. The boat gets caught in rough water. Truman's father falls overboard. Young Truman reaches out, tries to grab his father's hand, and watches as his father slips beneath the waves and disappears. His father drowns right in front of him. A little boy, out on the water, watching his dad die while he is powerless to save him. It is the kind of moment that would destroy any child. The kind of moment that burns itself into your brain and never, ever goes away. But here is what makes this scene so much worse when you know the truth. None of it was real. Truman's father did not drown. The man playing his father is an actor. The storm was created by Christoph and his crew from the control room. The whole thing was staged. Every wave, every gust of wind, every terrified scream. It was all manufactured, all planned, all designed to achieve one very specific goal: to make Truman afraid of water for the rest of his life. And it worked. It worked perfectly. From that day forward, Truman cannot go near the ocean without feeling pure terror. The sight of deep water makes him freeze. The thought of getting on a boat makes him sick. And because Sea Haven is an island, because it is surrounded by water on every side, Truman's fear of the ocean is the single most effective wall Christoph could ever build. It is better than concrete. It is better than steel. It is a wall made of trauma, built inside the mind of a child, and it holds Truman in place for almost 3 decades. He does not stay in Sea Haven because he cannot leave. He stays because he is too afraid to try. And he does not even know that the fear was given to him on purpose. He thinks it is just who he is. He thinks he is simply a person who is afraid of water. He has no idea that someone made him this way. Now, if fear of water was the only tool Christoph used, that would already be enough for a movie. But it is not. Christoph does not just build one wall of fear. He builds an entire system of fear and discouragement, designed to make sure Truman never even thinks about leaving Sea Haven. And every single part of this system targets something different inside Truman's mind. Take one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the whole film. Truman is a young student in school. His teacher asks the class what they want to be when they grow up. And Truman, still that same curious and adventurous kid at heart, says he wants to be an explorer. He wants to be like one of the great explorers from history. He wants to go out into the world and discover things nobody has ever seen before. And what does his teacher say? She does not encourage him. She does not say that is a wonderful dream. She does not tell him anything positive at all. Instead, she walks over to a map hanging on the wall, pulls it down, and tells him that the whole world has already been explored. There is nothing left to discover. There is no point in going anywhere, because everywhere has already been found. Think about what that does to a child. A kid stands up in front of his class and shares his dream, and the authority figure in the room immediately shuts it down. She does not just say it might be hard or it might take a lot of work. She says it is pointless. She says the dream itself is a dead end. And of course, she is not really a teacher. She is an actress. And that line was almost certainly fed to her by the production team to kill Truman's desire to explore before it could ever grow into something real. The show needs Truman to stay. The show needs him to believe that there is no reason to go anywhere. So they crush his dream at the source when he is too young to fight back, and they do it through someone he trusts. But the system goes even further. Later in the movie, Truman starts thinking about traveling to Fiji. He wants to find Sylvia, the woman he connected with at college before she was taken away from him. Sylvia is supposedly in Fiji now, and Truman wants to go to her. So he walks into a travel agency to book a trip. This should be a simple thing, right? You walk in, you say where you want to go, and they help you get there. But that is not what happens. The travel agent, who is of course another actress on the show, does everything in her power to stop Truman from booking the trip. She tells him there are no available flights for weeks. She makes the whole process seem difficult and frustrating. And then there is the detail that really seals it. On the wall of the travel agency, there are posters. Not the kind of posters you would normally see in a travel office. The kind showing beautiful beaches and sunny skies and happy vacationers. No. There is a poster showing a plane being struck by lightning. There is imagery designed to make air travel look dangerous and terrifying. The entire office is set up to discourage Truman from wanting to fly anywhere, ever. And then there is the moment when Truman tries the most direct approach of all. He just tries to leave. He gets in his car and starts driving. He is going to drive right out of town, cross the bridge, and go. Simple as that. But the moment he starts heading for the edge of Sea Haven, the entire world turns against him. First, he runs into a traffic jam that appears out of nowhere, on a road that should be completely empty. Cars are backed up for no reason, blocking his path. When he tries to find another route, there is a forest fire blocking the road. A whole section of the woods is supposedly on fire, with crews and barriers keeping everyone away. So he tries yet another road, and this time he runs into what appears to be a leak at a nuclear power plant. There are people in hazard suits, warning signs everywhere, and officials telling everyone to turn back immediately. Traffic jam, forest fire, nuclear accident. 3 completely unrelated disasters, all happening at the exact same time, all on the exact routes Truman would need to take to leave town. And none of them are real. Every single one of them was created by Christoph and his crew in real time, thrown together the moment they realized Truman was trying to escape. This is how the system works. It does not just rely on one big fear. It layers fear on top of fear, on top of fear. It attacks from every angle. The water is dangerous, so do not sail. The world has already been explored, so there is no point in going. Flying is scary, so do not get on a plane. And if you somehow push past all of that and actually try to physically leave, the roads themselves will stop you. There is always another wall. There is always another reason not to go. And every single one of these walls is invisible. None of them look like walls. The traffic jam looks like bad luck. The fire looks like a random disaster. The nuclear leak looks like a safety issue. If you are Truman, standing in the middle of all this, you do not think, someone is trapping me. You think, I guess today is just not my day. I will try again some other time. And then you turn around, go home, sit on your couch, and tell yourself it was not meant to be. And that is the true genius of what Christoph does. He does not make Truman feel trapped. He makes Truman feel like staying is his own choice. The fear does not feel forced on him. It feels natural. The obstacles do not feel manufactured. They feel like life. And because of that, Truman never blames anyone for keeping him inside. He blames himself. He tells himself he is a coward for being afraid of water. He tells himself he is foolish for wanting to explore a world that has already been explored. He tells himself he is unlucky for running into traffic and fires and nuclear leaks every time he tries to go somewhere. The prison works because the prisoner thinks it is his own fault that he cannot leave. Now step back from the movie for a second and think about your own life. Think about the fears that keep you where you are. Think about the things you have always wanted to do but never did because something inside you said it was too dangerous, too risky, too pointless, too unlikely to work. How many of those fears did you choose? How many of them did you actually develop on your own, from your own experiences? And how many of them were put there by someone else? By a parent who told you the world was scary, by a teacher who told you your dream was unrealistic, by a society that told you to play it safe, stay in your lane, do not rock the boat. The Truman Show is asking you to consider the possibility that some of the fears you carry around every single day, the ones that feel the most personal, the most natural, the most like they are just part of who you are, might not be yours at all. They might have been placed there by someone or something that benefits from you staying exactly where you are. Christoph did not just build a dome around Truman. He built a dome inside Truman's head. And the dome inside his head was always the more powerful prison. If you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel more than you know, and we have so much more to break down in this movie. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But fear alone is not enough to keep someone trapped forever. At some point, the cracks start showing. The walls start breaking. And when Truman finally begins to see the truth, the people around him do not just rely on fear anymore. They switch to something even more personal and even more painful. They use love. They use friendship. They use the people Truman trusts the most to gaslight him into believing he is the one who has lost his mind. Section 5. The gaslighting of Truman Burbank. When everyone around you is lying. There is something worse than being lied to by a stranger. Strangers lie to you all the time, and it does not really hurt because you never trusted them in the first place. But when the people closest to you lie to you, when the people you love and depend on and turn to in your weakest moments are the ones deceiving you, that is a completely different kind of pain. That is the kind of lie that makes you question everything, not just what is true and what is not, but whether you can trust your own mind anymore, whether the feelings you feel are valid, whether the things you notice are real or just in your head. And that is exactly the kind of lie that every single person in Truman's life is telling him, every single day, for his entire existence. Let us start with Meryl, played by Laura Linney. Meryl is Truman's wife. She lives with him. She sleeps next to him. She eats breakfast with him every morning. She is supposed to be his partner, the one person in the world who is completely on his side, no matter what. And she is a complete fraud. Every word she says is a performance. Every kiss, every smile, every moment of affection is scripted. She is not Truman's wife. She is an actress named Hannah Gill, who was hired by the show to play the role of Truman's wife, and she has been playing this role for years. Now here is where Meryl goes from being just a liar to being something much worse. There is a scene in the film where Truman is going through a very real, emotional crisis. He is starting to notice things that do not add up. He is feeling paranoid. He is scared. He is confused. He is trying to talk to Meryl about what he is experiencing, trying to explain to her that something is wrong with the world around them. And what does Meryl do? Does she listen? Does she try to understand? Does she sit down with her husband and take his concerns seriously? No. In the middle of this serious, emotional conversation, she picks up a package of cocoa and turns toward what appears to be nobody in particular and starts talking about how great the cocoa is. She holds up the package, reads the brand name, and talks about how it makes a great treat for the whole family. She is doing a product placement, right in the middle of her husband's breakdown, right in the middle of one of the most vulnerable moments of his life. Merrill does not even pause the performance to address his pain. The advertisement comes first, and Truman notices. He does not know exactly what is happening, but he can feel it. He looks at her, confused and angry, and asks her who she is talking to. Why is she holding the cocoa like that? Why is she speaking in that strange, rehearsed way? Why does it feel like she is talking to someone else, someone who is not in the room? And Merrill does not answer the question. She deflects. She changes the subject. She acts like Truman is the one being strange. But it gets worse. As Truman becomes more and more agitated, as his suspicions grow stronger, and his behavior becomes more erratic, Merrill does not try to help him. She tries to shut him down. She suggests that he is the one with the problem. She acts like his perfectly reasonable concerns are signs that something is wrong with him, not with the world. She makes him feel like he is losing his grip on reality. And the cruelest part is that she does it while looking like a loving, concerned wife. She does it with wide eyes and a worried voice and the appearance of someone who cares. But she does not care about Truman. She cares about the show. She cares about keeping the performance going. Truman's feelings are an obstacle to her, not a priority. There is another scene that shows exactly how far Merrill will go. The tension between them has been building. Truman is becoming increasingly desperate. He knows something is wrong, and he is running out of patience. And in the middle of a heated argument, things escalate. The situation gets intense. And what does Merrill do? She breaks character entirely. She looks away from Truman, looks toward a spot where there should be nobody watching, and shouts for someone to do something. She yells that the situation is getting out of hand. She says the word that gives everything away. She calls what is happening unprofessional. Think about that word. A wife, in the middle of a fight with her husband, does not call the situation unprofessional. That is not a word a wife uses. That is a word an employee uses, a worker uses, someone on a job uses. In that one moment, Merrill accidentally reveals the truth. She is not a wife having a fight. She is an actress who has lost control of a scene, and she wants someone from the crew to step in and fix it. That one word, unprofessional, tells Truman more about his reality than anything else she has ever said. And it should disturb him deeply, because it confirms that the person lying next to him every night does not see him as a husband. She sees him as a co-worker at best, and a job assignment at worst. Now there is another detail about Merrill that is so easy to miss, but so powerful once you see it. At one point in the film, Truman is looking through his wedding photographs. He is flipping through the album, looking at pictures from the day he married Merrill. And in one of the photos, you can see Merrill's hand, and her fingers are crossed. During their wedding vows, the moment where she is promising to love him and be with him forever, her fingers are crossed behind her back. It is the universal sign for a lie. The universal sign for, I do not mean what I am saying. And it has been sitting there in the photo album the entire time, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. Merrill was lying from the very first day. She never meant a single word. Now let us talk about Marlon, played by Noah Emmerich. If Merrill is the fake wife, Marlon is the fake brother. He is Truman's best friend. They have known each other since they were children. They sit together on the bridge near the water and talk about life. They share beers. They share memories. Marlon is the guy Truman turns to when things get confusing, the one person outside of his marriage that Truman believes he can trust completely. And just like Merrill, every bit of it is an act. Marlon is an actor named Louis Coltrane. He is being paid to be Truman's friend. And when the show needs him to, he becomes a weapon used directly against Truman's mind. The most devastating example of this happens during one of the most emotional scenes in the entire movie. Truman's suspicions have reached a breaking point. He is starting to unravel. He is telling people that he thinks the world revolves around him, that everyone is watching him, that nothing is what it seems. And the show is panicking because Truman is getting dangerously close to the truth. So Christof sends in Marlon. They arrange for Marlon to sit with Truman on the bridge at night, just the two of them, the way they have done 100 times before. And Marlon delivers a speech that is designed to break Truman's heart and reset his mind at the same time. Marlon looks Truman in the eyes and tells him that he is the closest thing to a brother that Marlon has ever had. He tells Truman that he would step in front of traffic for him. And then he says the line that cuts the deepest. He says, "The last thing I would ever do is lie to you." And when Marlon says it, you can hear the emotion in his voice. You can see it in his face. It feels real. It sounds real. If you were Truman sitting on that bridge, you would believe every word. But here is what the movie shows you that Truman cannot see. While Marlon is delivering this speech, the camera cuts to the control room. It shows Christof standing there, watching the scene on a monitor. And as Marlon speaks, Christof is mouthing the exact same words at the exact same time. He is feeding Marlon every single word through an earpiece. The speech is not coming from Marlon's heart. It is coming from Christof's script. The most emotionally honest thing Truman has ever heard from his best friend is the single biggest lie anyone has ever told him. And the cruelty of it is almost too much to bear. Because Truman's reaction is real. His relief is real. His gratitude is real. For a moment, sitting on that bridge, Truman lets his guard down because his best friend just told him he would never lie. And that is exactly what the show wanted. They used the one person Truman trusts the most to put him back to sleep. And it works, at least for a while. Truman calms down. He goes back to his routine. The cracks in the wall seal up just enough for the show to continue. And nobody around Truman feels guilty about what they just did. Now let us talk about Truman's mother, played by Holland Taylor. She is not as prominent in the film as Meryl or Marlon, but what she does is just as harmful. Truman's mother is another actress on the show, and she plays the role of the caring, slightly overbearing mother who just wants her son to be safe and happy and close to home. Throughout the film, she reinforces the same messages that Christof needs Truman to hear. She reminds Truman about his father's death at sea, which keeps his fear of water alive. She pressures him to have children, which would tie him to Sea Haven even more. She uses guilt and emotional pressure to make leaving feel like a betrayal of his family. She is not protecting her son. She is protecting the show. But she does it wearing the face of a mother's love, and that makes it nearly impossible for Truman to see through it. This is the pattern that runs through every single relationship in Truman's life. The people he trusts the most are the ones lying to him the most. His wife lies to his face. His best friend reads scripts into his ear. His mother uses guilt to keep him in line. Every single person Truman would naturally turn to for support, for honesty, for a reality check, is part of the machine that is keeping him trapped. And that means Truman has nowhere to go. When he feels like something is wrong, he cannot talk to his wife about it because she is in on it. He cannot talk to his best friend about it because he is in on it. He cannot talk to his mother about it because she is in on it. He is completely surrounded. The very people who are supposed to help him see clearly are the ones making sure he stays blind. And there is a word for what they are doing to him. They are making him doubt his own mind. They are making him question whether the things he sees and feels and notices are real. Every time Truman brings up something strange, every time he says something does not feel right, the people around him tell him he is imagining things. They tell him he is stressed. They tell him he is overreacting. They tell him everything is fine, and he is the one who needs help. Over and over and over, they push him to distrust his own eyes, his own ears, his own gut. And when you do that to someone long enough, when you make someone believe that their own thoughts and feelings cannot be trusted, you do not just control what they do. You control who they are. You turn them into someone who needs permission from other people to believe what is right in front of them. And that is a prison that no boat can sail you out of. But in the middle of all this deception, in a world where every single relationship is manufactured, there is one connection that is different. One moment of genuine human contact that the show did not plan for and could not control. And it happens with a woman who was never supposed to matter. Sylvia was just a background actress. She was nobody in the script, but she looked at Truman and saw a real person trapped in a fake world, and she could not keep quiet. She tried to tell him the truth. She tried to be the one honest voice in a world full of liars. And even though she was ripped away from him before she could finish, even though she was removed from the show and erased from his daily life, Truman never forgot her. He holds on to her memory by cutting out pictures from magazines, eyes, noses, mouths, pieces of different faces, and arranging them together to recreate what she looked like. He keeps this image hidden. He looks at it when he is alone. It is the one thing in his life that the show cannot touch, because it lives inside his heart and not on the set. Sylvia represents something Truman has never had from anyone else. She represents honesty. She represents a connection that is not based on a script or a paycheck or a hidden camera. And the fact that Truman holds on to her memory for years, even though he only knew her for a short time, tells you everything you need to know about what real human connection means to someone who has never had it. In a world of professional liars, the one person who tried to tell him the truth is the one person he cannot let go of. Every single relationship in this film is a mirror. It forces you to think about the people in your own life and ask uncomfortable questions. Who is real? Who is performing? Who actually has your best interests at heart, and who is just playing a role? The Truman Show does not give you easy answers, but it makes sure you never stop asking. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But fake relationships and emotional manipulation are only part of how Truman is controlled. There is another layer to this system that is just as powerful, but far less personal. It is the layer that turns Truman's entire existence into a product to be bought and sold. Because in Sea Haven, Truman is not just a person being watched, he is a person being sold. And the way this movie breaks down the business of turning a human life into a commercial is one of the sharpest and most relevant things about it, especially today. Section 6. You are the product. Consumerism and the commodification of human life. We have talked about the cameras. We have talked about the fear. We have talked about the fake relationships and the lies. But there is one part of Truman's world that we have not really dug into yet, and it might be the most important one of all. Because everything we have discussed so far, the dome, the actors, the 5,000 cameras, the manufactured storms, the emotional manipulation, all of it costs money, an enormous amount of money. You do not build the largest set ever constructed, hire an entire town's worth of actors, run a television show 24 hours a day for 30 years straight, and keep the whole operation going without a massive stream of cash flowing in. So where does the money come from? How does the Truman Show, the show within the movie, actually pay for itself? The answer is sitting right there in almost every single scene of the film, hiding in plain sight, woven so naturally into Truman's daily life that even he does not notice it. The answer is product placement, advertising, selling things. Because the Truman Show does not have commercial breaks. It cannot. The show runs live, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You cannot pause a man's real life to run a 30-second ad for toothpaste. So instead, the advertising is built directly into Truman's world. The products are part of his reality. The commercials are his life. And the people around him are the ones delivering the sales pitch, whether Truman realizes it or not. During an interview scene within the film, Christoph himself explains exactly how this works. He says that since the show runs around the clock without any commercial breaks, all of the show's enormous revenue is generated through product placement. And then he says something that should make your skin crawl. He says, everything on the show is for sale. Not some things, not certain items, everything. Every piece of furniture in Truman's house, every piece of clothing on his back, every appliance in his kitchen, every car on his street, every can of food in his pantry, all of it is a product that the audience at home can purchase. Truman's entire life is a shopping catalog. His reality is a storefront. And he is the mannequin in the window that makes people want to buy. The movie shows you exactly how this plays out through some of the most uncomfortable and funny scenes in the entire film. We already talked about the cocoa scene with Meryl, where she picks up a package of cocoa in the middle of a serious argument and starts pitching it to nobody in particular, talking about how it is a great treat for the whole family. But that is far from the only example. Meryl does this constantly. In another scene, she holds up a kitchen tool called the chef's pal. She looks at it, holds it up at an angle where it can be clearly seen, and describes all of its features. She says it is a dicer, a grater, a peeler, all in one, and that it never needs sharpening. She delivers this line with the enthusiasm of someone filming an actual television commercial. Except she is supposed to be standing in her own kitchen, talking to her husband. The disconnect is jarring. It feels wrong. And that is entirely the point. Peter Weir wants you to feel how unnatural it is, because he wants you to start noticing the same thing happening in your own life. And it is not just Meryl. Truman's best friend, Marlon, is also a walking billboard. Throughout the film, whenever Marlon appears, he is almost always holding a beer. And he does not just hold it casually, the way a normal person would hold a drink. He holds it with the label facing outward, positioned perfectly so that the brand name is always visible to the nearest hidden camera. He does it while having conversations with Truman. He does it while sitting on the bridge during their most personal moments together. He does it so smoothly and so consistently that it has clearly become second nature to him. The beer is always in his hand. The label is always facing out. And Marlon never once draws attention to it, because the whole point is that it looks natural. It is supposed to look like Marlon just happens to drink that brand. It is supposed to look like a choice, not a paid promotion. But it is a paid promotion. Every single time. Now here is where the movie connects all of this to something much bigger than just ads for cocoa and kitchen tools. Think about what Truman actually represents in this system. He was, as the movie tells us, one of 6 unwanted pregnancies. He was adopted at birth, not by a family, but by a corporation. The film makes this very clear. Truman Burbank is the first child in history to be legally adopted by a company. From the moment he took his first breath, he was not a son. He was an asset. He was not a baby. He was an investment. A corporation looked at a newborn child and saw a product that could generate profit for decades. And that is exactly what happened. Truman's entire life, from his first steps to his first day of school, to his wedding day, to every boring Tuesday afternoon at work, has been packaged, filmed, and sold to billions of people worldwide. And the audience buys into it in every sense of the word. They do not just watch the show, they buy the products. They buy the cocoa because Meryl drinks it. They buy the beer because Marlon drinks it. They buy the kitchen tools because they saw them in Truman's home. They buy the clothes, the furniture, the cars, all of it, because they have connected these products to Truman's life. And Truman's life has been carefully designed to look like the perfect version of the American dream. Nice house, white picket fence, beautiful wife, friendly neighbors, stable job, everything clean, everything pleasant, everything comfortable. The audience sees this life and thinks, if I buy the same things Truman has, maybe my life can look like that too. Maybe I can feel that happy. Maybe I can have that kind of peace. They are not just buying products. They are buying the fantasy that Truman's life represents. And that fantasy is the biggest product of all. The film even shows you the Truman Show merchandise catalog. It is a real catalog within the world of the movie, where viewers can order anything they see on the show. Anything from Truman's world can be delivered to your door. His lamps, his rugs, his curtains, his garden furniture. Everything that exists in Truman's manufactured reality can be purchased and placed in your real one. The line between the show and the shopping experience has been completely erased. Watching the show is shopping. Shopping is watching the show. The entertainment and the advertising have merged into one seamless experience, and the audience does not even think about it. They just consume. Now take a step back and think about how eerily similar this is to the world we actually live in today. Think about social media. Think about the people you follow online. Think about the influencers whose lives you watch every day. They wake up in beautiful apartments. They drink their morning coffee from a specific brand and hold the cup so the logo faces the camera. They get dressed in clothes from a specific company and tag the brand in the post. They drive specific cars, eat at specific restaurants, use specific products. And every single one of those things is a paid partnership. They are being paid to make their life look a certain way, to make you associate happiness and success with the things they are selling. And just like Truman's audience, we buy into it. We see the lifestyle, we want the lifestyle. So we buy the products, hoping they will bring us closer to the version of life we saw on our screens. We are doing in real life exactly what the fictional audience does in the Truman Show. And it goes even deeper than influencers. Think about the platforms themselves. Think about the social media apps you use every day. You are not paying for those apps. They are free. So how do they make money? They make money the same way the Truman Show makes money. Through advertising. Through product placement woven into your experience so smoothly that you barely notice it. Through promoted posts that look just like regular content from your friends. Through targeted ads that somehow know exactly what you are thinking about buying. You are Truman. Your feed is Sea Haven. The algorithm is Christoph. And the advertisers are the ones paying for the whole thing. You think you are using the app, but the app is using you. You think you are the audience, but you are the product. Your attention, your time, your clicks, your habits, your preferences, all of it is being tracked, recorded, and sold to companies who want to put their products in front of your eyes. That is the deal. You get a free app. They get to study you, predict your behavior, and sell access to your attention. And just like Truman, you did not agree to this deal. It was never explained to you in plain terms. It was just the world you were presented with, and you accepted it. The Truman Show was released in 1998. Facebook did not exist until 2004. Instagram did not exist until 2010. TikTok did not exist until 2016. Influencer culture was not even a concept when this movie came out. And yet, somehow, this film described the entire business model of the modern internet with perfect accuracy. almost a decade before any of it existed. People watched this movie in 1998 and thought it was a clever exaggeration. Nobody thought we would actually build a world where billions of people voluntarily broadcast their lives to strangers, where every human interaction is an opportunity to sell something, where the most intimate moments of people's lives are turned into content for profit. Nobody thought the real world would catch up to the movie. But it did. And in many ways, it went even further. Because here is the thing that the movie shows you that most people miss. The product placement in Truman's world is obvious. It is exaggerated on purpose. When Meryl holds up the cocoa and starts her sales pitch, it looks ridiculous. It looks fake. You can see it from a mile away. And that is the point. Peter Weir made the product placement look absurd so that you would laugh at it. So that you would think, that is so over the top. Nobody would ever fall for something like that. And then he wants you to walk out of the theater, turn on your television, open a magazine, scroll through your phone, and realize that the exact same thing is happening to you. It is just smoother. It is just more polished. The real world's version of product placement does not look like Meryl awkwardly holding up a box of cocoa. It looks like your favorite celebrity casually wearing a certain brand of sneakers. It looks like a cooking video where the chef just happens to use a specific brand of pan. It looks like a movie where the hero drives a specific car and drinks a specific brand of soda. The product placement in your life is the same as the product placement in Truman's life. The only difference is that in your life, it is done well enough that you do not notice it. And that might be the most disturbing message of all. Truman never knew he was being used. He never knew that his morning routine was a commercial. He never knew that his wife's enthusiasm about kitchen gadgets was a paid promotion. He never knew that his best friend's beer was a walking advertisement. He went through his entire life thinking these were just normal parts of his normal world. And we do the same thing. We scroll past ads without thinking. We watch sponsored content without questioning it. We buy things because someone we follow online made them look good. And we never stop to ask the question that the movie is screaming at us to ask. Who is making money off my life? Who is profiting from the choices I think I am making freely? And am I really choosing, or am I just buying what I have been trained to buy by a system I never even noticed was there? Truman's name itself holds the answer. His last name is Burbank. The city of Burbank, California, is where many of the biggest television studios and production companies in America are located, including the studios where much of the entertainment industry operates. Truman Burbank is literally named after the place where television is made. His first name, Truman, breaks down to true man. He is the true man living inside a manufactured world. He is the only real person in a town full of actors, and his name has been telling you that from the very first frame of the movie. The Truman Show does not just criticize the show within the movie. It criticizes the entire system that makes shows like it possible. It criticizes a world where human beings can be turned into products, where real lives can be packaged and sold, where every genuine emotion and every personal moment can be monetized. And the worst part is not that this system exists. The worst part is that most of us are living inside it right now, and we think it is normal. We think it is just the way the world works. We accept the reality we are presented with. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the product placement and the advertising are only part of how Truman's world mirrors our own. Because while Truman is being sold to the audience, he is also being watched by them, every second of every day. And the way this movie handles the idea of constant surveillance, of being monitored at all times, without your knowledge or your permission, is so accurate that experts have called it one of the most prophetic films ever made. And what it predicted about our future is genuinely unsettling. Section 7, 5,000 Cameras, How the Film Predicted Our Surveillance Nightmare. In 1998, when The Truman Show hit theaters, the world looked very different from the one we live in today. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. There was no Snapchat or TikTok or YouTube. Most people did not have cell phones, and the ones who did had phones that could only make calls and send basic text messages. There were no front-facing cameras on your phone because smartphones did not exist yet. The idea of filming yourself every day and posting it online for strangers to watch would have sounded insane to most people in 1998. Security cameras existed, sure, but they were mostly in banks and convenience stores. The average person could walk through their daily life without being recorded by anything or anyone. Privacy was not something people worried about losing because it was not under any real threat. It was just there, the way air is there. You did not think about it because you did not have to. And then this movie came out and showed a world where one man is watched by 5,000 hidden cameras every second of every day, from the moment he wakes up to the moment he falls asleep. Cameras in his car dashboard, cameras inside his neighbor's garbage can, cameras hidden behind his bathroom mirror, cameras built into the buttons on people's jackets, cameras embedded in the struts and beams of his office, a camera hidden inside his own wedding ring, the black ring that was given to him by his father, sitting right there on his finger, recording everything his hand touches and everywhere his hand goes. Truman has zero privacy. Not a single moment of his life is unrecorded. Not a single conversation is unheard. Not a single room in his house is safe. And he has absolutely no idea. Now here is the thing. In 1998, audiences watched this and thought it was science fiction. They thought it was a wild, exaggerated what-if scenario that made for a great movie, but had nothing to do with real life. Nobody walked out of the theater thinking, this is going to happen to all of us. But that is exactly what happened. The Truman Show did not just tell a good story. It predicted the future. And it did it with a level of accuracy that is honestly a little frightening. Director Peter Weir did not stumble into this by accident. He went out of his way to make the surveillance in the film feel authentic. During pre-production, Weir, along with his cinematographer Peter Biziou and his production designer Dennis Gassner, actually researched real surveillance camera techniques. They studied how security cameras are positioned, how they capture footage, what angles they use, and what the footage actually looks like. Then they applied all of that research to the film. Many of the shots in The Truman Show are deliberately framed to look like real security camera footage. When you see Truman filmed from his car dashboard, that is designed to look like a dash cam. When you see him from a high angle walking through the streets, that is designed to look like a CCTV camera mounted on a building. When you see him through a rounded, slightly distorted lens inside his house, that is designed to look like a hidden camera tucked into an everyday object. Weir wanted the surveillance in this movie to feel real, not like a movie trick, but like something you might actually see if someone was really being watched this way. And because of that commitment to realism, the surveillance scenes in this 27-year-old movie still feel uncomfortably relevant today. In 2008, 10 years after the film was released, Popular Mechanics, one of the most well-known science and technology magazines in America, published a list of what they considered the 10 most prophetic science fiction films ever made. The Truman Show was on that list. They recognized that this movie did not just imagine a possible future. It described a future that was already starting to come true. And that was in 2008. We are now almost 2 decades past that recognition, and the film's predictions have become even more accurate with every passing year. Let us break down exactly what the movie got right. First, It predicted reality television. When The Truman Show was released in June of 1998, reality TV as we know it today barely existed. The genre was in its absolute earliest stages. Big Brother, one of the first major reality shows where cameras followed people around the clock, did not premiere until the year 2000 in the Netherlands and 2001 in the United States. Survivor, another landmark reality show, also premiered in the year 2000. The Truman Show came out 2 full years before either of those shows existed. And yet, the movie showed a world where the most popular television program on the planet was a live broadcast of a real person's daily life, watched by billions. The film did not just predict reality TV. It predicted the entire concept of turning ordinary people into entertainment, which is the foundation that every single reality show has been built on since. But the movie went further than just predicting reality shows on television. It predicted something much bigger. It predicted a world where regular people would voluntarily put themselves under constant surveillance, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. Think about what we do every single day in the modern world. We carry smartphones that have cameras on both sides. We post photos of our food, our vacations, our families, our homes, our faces. We share our location. We tag where we are and who we are with. We film ourselves doing everyday things and upload those videos for anyone on the planet to watch. We live stream our lives to strangers. We put cameras inside our own homes, cameras that we bought and installed ourselves, and connect them to the internet. We wear watches that track our heartbeat, our steps, our sleep patterns, and send that data to companies we have never met. We do all of this willingly. Nobody forced us. Nobody tricked us. We walked into the dome and closed the door behind us. In 2023, the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, known as ACMI, published a detailed analysis of The Truman Show on its 25th anniversary. The writer, Anthony Fragman, described what the film had managed to predict before any of it existed. He said the film foretold the rise of reality TV, mass surveillance, social media, influencer marketing, and our increasing obsession with celebrity. That is not a fan on the internet making a guess. That is a respected cultural institution laying out, point by point, exactly how accurate this movie turned out to be. And every single thing on that list, every single thing the movie showed us in 1998, is now a normal part of daily life for billions of people around the world. There is a specific scene in the movie that hits differently now than it did in 1998. At one point, Truman is driving his car, and the radio starts acting strangely. Instead of music or a normal broadcast, Truman suddenly hears voices. And the voices are describing his movements in real time. They are saying things like, he is turning left now. He is approaching the intersection. He is heading south on this street. Truman is hearing the production crew communicating with each other, tracking his exact location as he drives. The signal was accidentally picked up by his car radio due to a technical glitch. In 1998, this was a creepy and clever plot point. In the world we live in today, it is just Tuesday. Our phones track our movements constantly. GPS data records where we go, how long we stay, and what route we take. Apps request access to our location, and many of us grant it without a second thought. Ride-sharing services know exactly where we are at all times. Map applications store a history of everywhere we have been. The difference between Truman hearing his movements tracked on the radio and us having our movements tracked through our phones is that Truman was horrified when he found out. Most of us do not even care. And it goes beyond just tracking where we are. Think about how much of our private information is being collected right now as you watch this video. The device you are watching on knows who you are. It knows what you searched for today. It knows what you searched for last week. It knows what videos you watch, how long you watch them, what you skip, what you re-watch, and what you click on next. It knows what you buy online. It knows what websites you visit. In many cases, it knows your age, your gender, your income level, your interests, your relationship status, and the names of your friends and family. All of this data is being collected, stored, analyzed, and used to predict your behavior and sell you things. A scholar named Shoshana Zuboff wrote an entire book about this called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. In it, she describes this system as a new kind of economic order that takes human experience and turns it into raw material for hidden business practices. The goal is not just to watch you. The goal is to predict what you will do next, and then push you to do it. It is not just surveillance. It is control, disguised as convenience. And that is exactly what Christoph does. He does not just watch Truman. He uses what he sees to control Truman's behavior. He watches Truman's reactions and adjusts the world around him in real time. If Truman seems curious about something, Christoph creates a distraction. If Truman seems like he wants to leave, Christoph throws an obstacle in his path. The watching is never just watching. The watching is always in service of manipulation. And that is the exact same model that the biggest technology companies in the world operate on today. They watch you, they learn your patterns, and then they use what they have learned to keep you engaged, keep you scrolling, keep you buying, keep you inside the dome. Now here is where it gets really unsettling. At least Truman had no choice in the matter. He did not know he was being watched. He did not consent to any of it. He was born into it and never given the option to opt out. But we know. We know our phones are tracking us. We know our apps are collecting our data. We know our smart speakers are listening. We know our social media activity is being analyzed and sold. We know all of this, and we keep going. We keep posting. We keep sharing. We keep carrying the cameras in our pockets. We keep inviting the surveillance into our homes and our lives. Truman was an unwilling prisoner. We are willing participants. And somehow, that makes it worse. Because it means we have seen the movie. We have understood the warning, and we have chosen to ignore it. The movie even predicted the way people would react to being watched all the time. Throughout the film, we see Truman performing for the cameras without knowing they are there. He does his little morning routine. He makes faces in the mirror. He talks to himself. He acts out scenes where he pretends to be an explorer or an adventurer. These are private moments, the kind of things you do when you think nobody is watching. And for Truman, they feel private. He thinks he is alone, but he is not alone. He is never alone. And billions of people are watching those moments and consuming them as entertainment. Now think about what people do on social media every single day. They film their morning routines. They talk to the camera while getting ready. They share their private thoughts and feelings with strangers. They perform versions of themselves for an audience. The only difference between Truman and a modern influencer is that the influencer knows the camera is there. But the performance is the same. The loss of the private self is the same. The transformation of personal life into public content is the same. The Truman Show predicted that we would reach a point where the line between private and public life would disappear completely. And we are there. We crossed that line years ago, and most of us did not even notice when it happened. In 2025, The Truman Show was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. The National Film Registry preserves films that are considered culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. This means that the United States government itself has officially recognized that this film matters, that it has lasting value. that it says something important about who we are and where we are headed. And the fact that this recognition came in 2025, 27 years after the movie was released, tells you that the film's message has not faded with time. It has gotten louder. Every year that passes, every new app that launches, every new camera that gets installed, every new piece of data that gets collected, The Truman Show becomes less of a movie and more of a documentary. Peter Weir made a film in 1998 about a man who was watched every second of his life by cameras he could not see, controlled by people he did not know, for the benefit of a system he was never told about. And we watched that film, recognized the horror of it, felt sorry for Truman, and then spent the next 27 years building the exact world he was trying to escape from. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this deep dive, please consider subscribing. It helps this channel more than you might think, and it allows us to keep making content like this. But all of the surveillance, all of the cameras, all of the data collection, none of it would work if Truman actually wanted to leave. The system only functions as long as the person inside it is comfortable enough to stay. And that is why the design of Sea Haven itself might be the most clever trick of all. Because Truman's prison was not designed to look like a prison. It was designed to look like paradise. And as we are about to see, that is exactly what makes it so hard to escape. Section 8. Sea Haven. The beautiful prison you'd never want to leave. Here is something most people never think about when they watch this movie. Sea Haven does not look like a prison, not even a little bit. There are no gray walls. There are no iron bars. There is no barbed wire. There are no guards standing at the doors with their arms crossed. If you dropped into Sea Haven without knowing anything about The Truman Show, without knowing anything about Christoph, or the cameras, or the actors, you would not think you had landed in a prison. You would think you had landed in paradise. You would look around at the clean streets, the beautiful houses, the smiling neighbors, the perfect weather, and you would think this is the nicest place you have ever seen. You might even want to live there. And that is exactly the point. That is exactly why it works. Because the most dangerous prison in the world is not the one that looks terrifying. It is the one that looks so good you never want to leave. Let us talk about what Sea Haven actually looks like, because the details matter. The houses in Sea Haven are painted in soft, warm colors. Pinks, blues, whites, light yellows. They look like something out of a storybook. Every lawn is perfectly mowed. Every fence is freshly painted white. The sidewalks are spotless. There is no trash on the ground. There is no graffiti on the walls. There are no broken windows or cracked pavement or rusted fences. Everything is maintained to a level of perfection that does not exist in any real town on Earth. The cars parked on the street are clean and polished. The trees are trimmed. The flowers are blooming. Even the street cleaners in the background are out there pretending to clean streets that are already perfectly clean. And the weather matches the scenery. Almost every day in Sea Haven is sunny. The sky is blue. The temperature is comfortable. When it rains on schedule, and only when Christoph decides it should rain. There are no surprises. There are no bad days. There is no chaos. Everything in Sea Haven is controlled, managed, and maintained to create the feeling that this is the safest, happiest, most pleasant place anyone could ever live. Now here is what makes this even more interesting. Peter Weir did not build Sea Haven from scratch on a sound stage. He found a real place that already looked like this. The majority of The Truman Show was filmed in a town called Seaside, Florida. Seaside is located in the Florida Panhandle, and it is one of the first master-planned communities in the United States. What that means is that Seaside was designed and built from the ground up, according to a very specific vision. Every house follows a particular style. Every street is laid out in a particular pattern. The colors of the buildings, the sizes of the yards, the placement of the sidewalks, all of it was planned before a single brick was laid. Seaside was built to feel like a perfect small American town, the kind of town that people imagine when they close their eyes and think about the good old days. It was designed to create a feeling, a mood, a sense that this is how life is supposed to be. Peter Weir's wife, Wendy Stites, introduced him to Seaside during the early stages of production. Before that, the plan was to build the sets at Universal Studios in Hollywood. But when Weir saw Seaside, he immediately knew it was the right location. He moved the production offices there and filmed most of the exterior scenes in that town. And the reason it was so perfect for the movie is obvious. Seaside is a real-life version of Sea Haven. It is a real town that was planned and designed to create a specific experience for the people who live there. It is beautiful, it is controlled, it is curated, and it is man-made from top to bottom. Using a real planned community to stand in for a fictional planned community added a whole extra layer of meaning to the film. Because it shows that Sea Haven is not as far-fetched as you might think. We already build places like this in the real world. We already create environments that are designed to feel perfect, to look perfect, to make you feel a certain way when you walk through them. The difference between Seaside and Sea Haven is just a matter of degree. Now, on top of the real location, Weir also made very specific choices about the visual style of the film. He drew heavy inspiration from Norman Rockwell paintings and postcards from the 1960s. Norman Rockwell was an American artist famous for painting scenes of everyday American life that looked warm, wholesome, and idealized. His paintings showed families gathered around dinner tables, kids playing in the street, friendly neighbors waving at each other, small-town life at its absolute best. But the thing about Rockwell's paintings is that they were always a little too perfect. They showed the version of America that people wanted to believe in, not necessarily the version that actually existed. And that is exactly the feeling Weir wanted Sea Haven to have. He wanted it to look like a Rockwell painting come to life. Beautiful on the surface, warm and inviting, but underneath, just a little too clean, a little too organized, a little too good to be true. And the name of the town itself tells you everything you need to know. Sea Haven. Say it slowly. Sea Haven. A haven by the sea. A safe place. A shelter. A refuge. But people who have studied this film have pointed out that the letters in Sea Haven can be rearranged to get very close to the words, as heaven. The town is not just a safe place. It is meant to feel like heaven itself. It is meant to be the best place anyone could ever imagine living. And for almost 30 years, it works. Truman does not try to leave Sea Haven because, why would he? Look around. The sun is shining. The neighbors are smiling. His house is beautiful. His street is clean. His life is comfortable. Why would anyone leave heaven? And that is the trap. That is the message the movie is delivering. Comfort is the most effective prison ever designed. When your cage is beautiful, when your chains are soft, when your captors smile at you and bring you breakfast every morning, you stop thinking of yourself as a prisoner. You start thinking of yourself as lucky. You start thinking that you have a good life, that you should be grateful, that wanting more or wanting different is ungrateful or foolish. The bars of the cage disappear because you cannot see them anymore. Not because they are gone, but because they have been covered in flowers and fresh paint. This idea has been explored in stories for hundreds of years. The writer Thomas More published a book called Utopia all the way back in 1516, over 500 years ago. In it, he described an island with limited ways in and limited ways out, where the people who lived there believed they were in a perfect society. Only those who belonged to the island knew how to safely get in and out. Outsiders could not navigate the waters around it. The parallels to Sea Haven are obvious. An island surrounded by water. Limited exits that only certain people know about. A population that believes they are living in the best possible version of the world. And at the center, a person who was placed there without being asked, and who is slowly beginning to realize that perfection might not be what it seems. Now think about this idea outside of the movie. Think about the world we live in right now. Think about the things that keep most people in their routines, in their jobs, in their habits, in their comfort zones. Most of us are not being held in place by physical force. Nobody is locking us in a room. Nobody is chaining us to a desk. What keeps most people in place is comfort. It is the apartment that is nice enough that moving feels like too much trouble. It is the job that pays enough that quitting feels too risky. It is the social media feed that is entertaining enough that putting down the phone feels boring. It is the routine that is familiar enough that changing it feels scary. We are not trapped by walls. We are trapped by the fact that our current situation is just comfortable enough that the pain of staying feels smaller than the pain of leaving. And so we stay. Day after day, week after week, year after year. We stay in our version of Sea Haven because it is warm, and it is safe, and it is easy. And we tell ourselves that this is happiness. We tell ourselves that this is enough. Christoph understands this better than anyone. That is why he built Sea Haven the way he did. He did not build a dark, scary, uncomfortable place that would make Truman want to run. He built a paradise that would make Truman want to stay. He gave Truman a nice house, a pretty wife, a loyal friend, a steady job, sunny weather, and a community that greets him by name every single morning. He gave Truman every reason to be content and no reason to be curious. And for almost 30 years, it worked perfectly. In the final scene of the movie, when Truman has reached the wall of the dome and is standing at the exit door, Christoph makes his last argument for why Truman should stay. And what does he talk about? He does not threaten Truman. He does not try to scare him. He talks about how beautiful the world inside the dome is. He talks about how safe it is. He talks about how the real world outside is full of lies and pain and danger. He tells Truman that the world he created is better than the real one. He is making the final case for comfort over freedom. He is saying, why would you leave paradise? Why would you trade safety for uncertainty? Why would you walk through that door into the darkness when you could stay here in the light? And that is the question the movie leaves hanging in the air for every single person watching. Because we all face that question. Maybe not in such a dramatic way. Maybe not with a fake sky and a hidden camera and a man speaking to us from a control room in the moon. But in our own lives, in our own quiet, personal ways, we all face the choice between the comfort of what we know and the terror of what we do not. And most of us, if we are being honest, choose comfort. Most of us stay in the dome. Most of us never open the door. Not because we cannot, but because the prison is so beautiful that we have forgotten it is a prison at all. That is the genius of Sea Haven. It does not trap your body. It traps your desire to leave. And a person who does not want to leave will never even look for the door. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But while Truman sits inside his beautiful cage, there is another group of people the movie wants us to think about. The people on the other side of the screen. The billions of viewers who watch Truman's life unfold every single day, who consume his pain and his joy as entertainment, and who never once stop to ask whether what they are doing is right. The audience inside the film is just as trapped as Truman, and the movie has some very uncomfortable things to say about them and about us. Section 9. The audience inside the film. Why we're all guilty. Up to this point, we have spent a lot of time talking about Christoph. We have talked about his control, his God complex, his manipulation. We have talked about the actors who lie to Truman every day. We have talked about the cameras and the fear and the product placement and the beautiful prison of Sea Haven. But there is one group of people in this movie that almost nobody talks about, and they might be the most important part of the entire film: the audience. Not us, the people watching the movie in real life. The audience inside the movie. The fictional billions of people around the world who tune in every single day to watch The Truman Show, the show within the movie. Because the film does not just criticize Christoph. It does not just criticize the actors or the corporation. It puts the viewers themselves on trial. And through them, it puts us on trial too. Throughout the movie, Peter Weir regularly cuts away from Truman's story to show us the people who are watching him. And these are not Hollywood executives in fancy boardrooms. They are ordinary people. Regular, everyday folks. Two older women sitting on a couch in their living room, wrapped in blankets, watching Truman's life the way you might watch your favorite soap opera. A man relaxing in his bathtub with a small television propped up nearby, so he does not miss a single moment. A bartender and his customers at a bar, all gathered around the screen above the counter, discussing what Truman is doing the way sports fans discuss a big game. Security guards watching from their desk, people in diners, people in their bedrooms, people everywhere, all glued to their screens, all watching one man live his life without his knowledge or his permission, and none of them have a problem with it. That is the part that should disturb you the most. These are not bad people. They are not cruel or evil or heartless. They are just normal people who have been watching this show for so long that they have stopped thinking about what it actually is. They have stopped asking the basic questions. Is this right? Is it okay to watch a man who does not know he is being watched? Is it okay to be entertained by someone's real emotions, real pain, real confusion, real fear, when that person never agreed to any of it? These questions never seem to cross anyone's mind. The show has been on the air for 30 years. It is just part of life. It is just what everyone watches. It is normal. And when something is normal, people stop questioning whether it should be. Think about what these viewers actually see. They watch Truman wake up in the morning. They watch him brush his teeth. They watch him eat breakfast. They watch him talk to his wife. They watch him drive to work. They watch him have conversations with his friends. They watch him struggle with his fears. They watch him grieve for his dead father. They watch his most private, most personal, most vulnerable moments, and they consume all of it as entertainment. When Truman is sad, they feel sad. When Truman is happy, they feel happy. When Truman is confused and scared because his world is falling apart, they lean in closer to the screen because this is the good part. His suffering is their drama. His breakdown is their season finale. His entire inner life has been turned into content for their enjoyment. And the movie makes a point of showing that these viewers genuinely care about Truman. They are not watching with cold, detached cruelty. They are emotionally invested. They root for him. They talk about him like they know him. They have opinions about his marriage, his career, his choices. They feel connected to him. And that makes it worse, not better. Because their care is completely one-sided. They feel like they know Truman, but Truman does not know they exist. They have watched him grow up, but he has never seen their faces. They feel like he is part of their life, but they are not part of his. It is the illusion of a relationship. It looks like love. It sounds like love. But it is not love, because love requires two people who both choose to be in it. What the audience has with Truman is something else entirely. It is ownership disguised as affection. It is consumption dressed up as connection. Now here is where the movie delivers its most brutal punch. The very end. Truman has escaped. He has sailed across the ocean, survived the storm, found the wall of the dome, climbed the stairs, said his final words, and walked through the door into the unknown. It is the most triumphant moment in the entire film. Freedom. After 30 years of captivity, Truman Burbank is free. And what happens next? The camera cuts to the viewers. The people who have been watching Truman for his entire life are shown reacting to this moment. And yes, they cheer, they cry, they celebrate. They are happy for him. For a few seconds, it feels like a genuine moment of shared human emotion. The whole world is celebrating Truman's freedom. And then, within seconds, one of the viewers turns to the other and says something that changes the entire meaning of the scene. He asks, "What else is on?" That is it. What else is on? Truman just broke free from a 30-year prison. He just walked away from the only world he has ever known into complete darkness. He just made the bravest and most terrifying decision any human being could ever make. And the people who watched him do it, the people who cried for him, who cheered for him, who felt like they were part of his journey, they are already looking for the next thing to watch. The channel changes. The screen goes to something else. Truman is forgotten. His moment of freedom, the most meaningful event of his entire life, is reduced to a few seconds of entertainment before the audience moves on to the next show. That scene is devastating because of how honest it is. It shows you exactly how shallow the audience's connection to Truman really was. They were not invested in him as a person. They were invested in him as content. They cared about him the way you care about a character in a television show. When the show is on, you are absorbed. You feel things. You react. But the moment it ends, you pick up your phone. You scroll to the next thing, and the feelings evaporate. The Truman Show is saying that this is what we do. This is how we consume people. We watch them. We feel things for them. And then we forget them the moment something new appears on our screen. And if you think this does not apply to the real world, think again. Think about the last time a celebrity went through a public breakdown. Think about how the whole internet talked about it, how people posted their opinions and their hot takes and their concern, how it was the main topic for a day, maybe two, maybe a week. And then think about how quickly everyone moved on. The celebrity's pain was content for exactly as long as it was interesting, and then it was discarded the moment something more interesting came along. That is the "what else is on" moment playing out in real life, over and over and over again. We consume people's worst moments. We squeeze every drop of entertainment out of their suffering, and then we scroll past them like they never existed. Now there is one more detail about the audience in this film that most people do not know about, and it reveals just how far the filmmakers wanted to push this idea. During production, the creators of the movie actually wanted to install hidden cameras inside the real movie theaters, where the Truman Show was being shown to audiences. The plan was that during one of the scenes in the film, where the camera cuts to the fictional audience watching Truman on their TVs, the movie would suddenly pause, and the hidden camera in the theater would turn on. The real audience sitting in the theater would suddenly see themselves on the big screen. They would be watching the fictional audience watch Truman, and then they would realize that they were doing the exact same thing. They were sitting in a dark room, staring at a screen, watching a man's life play out for their entertainment. The audience would become part of the movie. The line between the watchers and the watched would collapse completely. The idea was eventually dropped. It never made it into the final film. But the fact that it was even considered tells you everything about what the filmmakers were trying to do. They did not want you to watch The Truman Show and feel comfortable pointing the finger at the fictional audience. They wanted you to realize that you are the fictional audience. You are the person on the couch. You are the person in the bathtub. You are the person at the bar. You are the one consuming another human being's life as entertainment. And the only difference between you and the people in the movie is that you bought a ticket to do it. A professor named Ronald Bishop wrote an academic paper about this film in the Journal of Communication Inquiry. In it, he argued that The Truman Show actually shows how powerful media really is. He said that the audience in the film is so controlled by the show that their own lives are shaped by it. Their emotions are dictated by what Truman does. Their daily routines revolve around watching him. Their conversations are about him. In a very real sense, the people watching Truman are almost as trapped as Truman himself. They are addicted to his life because they have no idea what to do with their own. The show gives them something to feel, something to care about, something to talk about. Without it, they would have to face the emptiness of their own existence. And that is too uncomfortable, so they keep watching. Bishop took this idea further. He argued that the media in the film does not just entertain people, it absorbs them. It becomes the thing they organize their lives around. And then when the show ends, when Truman walks through the door and the screen goes black, they do not sit with the weight of what they have just witnessed. They do not reflect on the 30 years of exploitation they participated in. They do not ask themselves hard questions about what they have been doing. They just look for the next thing, because the habit of consuming is stronger than the moment of awakening. The need to be entertained is stronger than the call to be thoughtful. And the cycle starts all over again. That is what The Truman Show is really saying about the audience. It is not just saying that watching someone without their permission is wrong. It is saying that we have built an entire culture around consumption, around watching, around scrolling and clicking and streaming and reacting, and that this culture has made us passive. It has made us comfortable with things we should be uncomfortable with. It has made us spectators of other people's lives instead of participants in our own. And the scariest part is that we do not even realize it is happening because it all feels so normal. It all feels like just what people do. The viewers in The Truman Show are not monsters. They are us. And the fact that we can watch them, recognize what they are doing wrong, and still go right back to doing the exact same thing ourselves is the most chilling message the movie has to offer. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the film's impact did not stop at the screen. Something happened after The Truman Show was released that nobody expected. Real people in the real world started believing that their own lives were being filmed, that they were living inside their own version of the show, that hidden cameras were following them and broadcasting their every move to millions of strangers. It was not a fan theory or an internet joke. It was a real condition, and psychiatrists gave it a name. Section 10. The Truman Show Delusion. When the movie became real life. After The Truman Show came out in 1998, something started happening that nobody predicted. Not the filmmakers, not the studio, not the critics who praised it, not the audiences who loved it. Something strange and unsettling started showing up in hospitals and psychiatric offices around the world. Real people, living real lives, started walking into clinics and telling their doctors that they believed they were living inside their own version of The Truman Show. They believed that hidden cameras were recording their every move. They believed that the people around them, their friends, their family, their co-workers, were all actors reading from a script. They believed that everything in their life, the buildings, the streets, the conversations, the weather, was part of an elaborate production being broadcast to millions of strangers watching from the other side of a screen. These were not people playing around. These were not fans of the movie having a bit of fun. These were people in genuine distress who were completely convinced that their reality was fake. and that the whole world was watching them. The first doctor to notice this pattern was a psychiatrist named Joel Gold. Joel Gold works at Bellevue Hospital Center in New York City, one of the oldest and most well-known public hospitals in the United States. Starting in the early 2000s, just a few years after the movie was released, Gold began seeing patients who described experiences that sounded almost exactly like Truman Burbank's life. One patient told Gold that he believed he was being filmed at all times, and that his life was a reality show. Another believed that the people on the streets of New York were extras in a production centered around him. Another traveled all the way to New York City, specifically because he believed that was where the show was being broadcast from, and he wanted to confront the people behind it. These patients came from different backgrounds. They were different ages. They lived in different places. But they all described the same basic experience. The world around them was staged. The people around them were fake. And somewhere, an audience was watching. Joel Gold did not dismiss these patients. He did not treat their experiences as random or meaningless. Instead, he noticed the pattern. He noticed that multiple people, completely unconnected to each other, were describing the same type of experience, and that all of them were using the same movie as their reference point. So he reached out to his brother, Ian Gold, who is a professor at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Ian Gold works in both philosophy and psychiatry, which means he studies how the mind works, and also how we think about how the mind works. Together, the two brothers began researching this phenomenon. They started collecting cases. They interviewed patients. They looked at the patterns. And eventually, they gave the condition a name. They called it the Truman Show delusion. Now, before we go any further, it is important to understand something. Joel and Ian Gold were not saying that the Truman Show caused people to become unwell. That is not what happened. The types of beliefs these patients experienced, the feeling that you are being watched, that people around you are not who they seem, that the world is not real. These types of beliefs have existed for as long as human beings have existed. Throughout history, people experiencing these kinds of thoughts have described them using the language and the images of their time. Centuries ago, a person might believe that demons were controlling their world. In the early 1900s, a person might believe that radio waves were being used to spy on them. During the Cold War, a person might believe that government agents were monitoring every conversation. The underlying experience is the same. What changes is the packaging. The culture a person lives in shapes the way these experiences look and feel and sound. And in the years following the release of The Truman Show, the movie became that packaging. It became the lens through which certain people understood and described what they were going through. What Joel and Ian Gold found fascinating was how perfectly the movie worked as a framework for this kind of experience. Think about it. The Truman Show gives you a complete, detailed, ready-made world in which one person is the center of everything, and everyone around them is pretending. The movie lays it all out. The cameras, the actors, the control room, the fake sky, the scripted conversations, the audience. It provides every single element a person would need to build a belief system around the idea that their own life is staged. Before the movie, a person having similar thoughts would have had to construct their own explanation from scratch. After the movie, they had a blueprint. They could just say, "It is like the Truman Show," and everyone immediately understood what they meant. The movie gave a name and a shape to something that had always existed, but had never been expressed quite so clearly. The Gold brothers eventually documented over 100 cases of people experiencing this type of belief. Over 100 real people who walked into hospitals or clinics or emergency rooms and described lives that mirrored Truman Burbank's in frightening detail. Some believed their homes were full of hidden cameras. Some believed their family members were reading from scripts given to them by producers. Some believed that strangers on the street were extras hired to walk past them at certain times. Some believed the weather was being manipulated. Some even believed that if they could just get far enough away, if they could just escape their current environment, they would find the wall at the edge of their world, just like Truman did. In 2014, Joel and Ian Gold published a book called Suspicious Minds: How Culture Shapes Madness. In this book, they explored the Truman Show delusion in depth and used it as a way to examine a much bigger question. That question is this: how does the culture we live in shape the way we experience reality when that experience breaks down? Their argument was that the movies we watch, the shows we stream, the technology we use, the stories we tell, all of it seeps into our minds in ways we do not fully understand. And when someone's experience of reality begins to shift, when they start to feel like something is wrong with the world around them, they reach for the cultural tools available to them to make sense of what is happening. In the 21st century, one of the most powerful cultural tools available is The Truman Show. It is a complete, vivid, emotionally resonant story about a man whose entire reality is fake. And for some people, that story becomes the template for their own experience. Now here is the thing that makes this even more unsettling. The Truman Show delusion is not recognized as an official condition in the DSM, which is the book that psychiatrists and psychologists use to classify mental health conditions. It is not listed as its own separate category. Professionals who have studied it generally describe it as a modern, culturally influenced version of older types of experiences involving beliefs about being watched or persecuted. What that means is that the underlying experience is not new. What is new is the form it takes, and the form it takes in the modern world looks exactly like a movie from 1998. Think about what that means for a moment. A movie was made to warn people about fake realities and manufactured lives. And then that exact movie became the framework for real people who believed they were living inside a fake reality. The fiction created to expose a problem became part of the problem itself. The warning became the thing people were warning about. There is something deeply unsettling about that loop. A film about a man who cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is manufactured ended up becoming the reference point for real people who are struggling with that exact same question. And it raises a question that the Gold brothers spent a lot of time thinking about. If our culture can shape the way people experience reality breaking down, then what is our current culture doing to the rest of us? We live in a world of filters, algorithms, curated feeds, and carefully edited lives. We live in a world where the line between what is real and what is performed gets thinner every single day. We live in a world where people present carefully constructed versions of themselves to an audience, and where other people consume those performances as if they are real. In other words, we live in a world that looks more and more like The Truman Show with every passing year. And if that world can shape the extreme experiences of some people, it is absolutely shaping the everyday experiences of all of us in ways we probably cannot even see yet. The Truman Show delusion teaches us something uncomfortable. It teaches us that the stories we tell and the media we consume do not just entertain us, they get inside us. They become part of how we see the world. They become the language we use to describe our experiences, including our most frightening and confusing ones. And a movie that was made to help people see through the illusion ended up becoming part of the illusion itself. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the movie does not end with a warning. It ends with an escape. And the way Truman escapes, the choices he makes, the obstacles he faces, and the final words he speaks before walking through that door contain some of the most powerful messages in the entire film. Because Truman's escape is not just a man leaving a television set. It is a story about what it costs to choose freedom over comfort, truth over safety, and the unknown over the familiar. And it begins with a boat named after the truth. Section 11. The Escape. A boat, a storm, and the door at the edge of the world. Everything in the Truman Show has been building to this. Every lie, every hidden camera, every scripted conversation, every manufactured fear, every beautiful day in Sea Haven. All of it has been leading to one moment. The moment Truman Burbank decides he has had enough. The moment he chooses to leave. And the way this escape unfolds is not just exciting filmmaking. It is packed with meaning, symbolism, and some of the most emotionally powerful scenes ever put on screen. So let us walk through it, piece by piece, because every detail matters. It starts with a decision. Truman has spent weeks noticing things that do not add up. The falling light from the sky, the radio signal that described his movements, the reappearance of his supposedly dead father, the way Merrill breaks character during their arguments, the way every road out of town seems to lead to some impossible obstacle. Bit by bit, crack by crack, the walls of Sea Haven have been showing themselves to Truman. And he has been paying attention. He has been pretending to go along with his normal routine while quietly planning his way out. And when the moment comes, he does not announce it. He does not make a speech. He does not confront anyone. He simply disappears. One night, Truman sets up pillows under his blanket to make it look like he is sleeping, sneaks out of his house, and vanishes. By the time Christoph and his crew realize what has happened, Truman is already gone. This moment is important because of what it tells us about Truman as a person. He does not escape in a moment of rage or panic. He escapes with a plan. He has thought about this. He has prepared. He figured out that he was being watched, and he used that knowledge against the people watching him. He fooled the people whose entire job was to fool him. After 30 years of being the most manipulated person on the planet, Truman Burbank turned the tables. And there is something deeply satisfying about that. When Christoph's crew finally locates Truman, he is out on the water. This is the single most important detail of the escape. Remember, water is the thing Truman fears more than anything else in the world. When he was a child, Christoph staged the drowning of Truman's father, specifically to create a fear of the ocean. That manufactured fear was the invisible wall that kept Truman on the island for his entire adult life. Every time Truman thought about leaving, every time he looked out at the water and imagined what was on the other side, that fear pulled him back. It was the chain that held him in place more than any camera or actor ever could. And now, here he is, out on the water, sailing across the one thing he was taught to be terrified of. Truman did not just escape Sea Haven. He escaped the fear that was built inside him. He looked at the thing that had controlled him for decades, and he sailed straight into it. That is not just bravery. That is a man reclaiming ownership of his own mind. And the boat he chose has a name. It is called the Santa Maria. That is not a random name. The Santa Maria was the largest of the 3 ships that Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic Ocean in 1492, when he set out to find a new world. Columbus left behind everything he knew and sailed into unknown waters, not knowing what he would find on the other side. Truman is doing the exact same thing. He is leaving the only world he has ever known and sailing into the unknown, with no guarantee of what waits for him. The name of the boat connects Truman's journey to one of the most famous voyages of discovery in human history. He is not just escaping a television show. He is an explorer setting out to find the truth. But Christoph is not going to let Truman go without a fight. When he sees Truman sailing across the water, he does the only thing he can do from his control room in the moon. He changes the weather. Christoph orders his crew to create wind, then more wind, then waves, Then a full storm. The sky above Truman goes dark. The water turns violent. Rain pours down in sheets. Lightning crashes around the boat. The waves grow taller and more dangerous. Christoph is throwing everything he has at Truman, using the one thing he has always used to control him. He is weaponizing the water. He is trying to make the fear so real, so overwhelming, so physically dangerous that Truman will have no choice but to turn around. And for a moment, it seems like it might work. The storm is brutal. The boat is tossed around like a toy. Truman is soaked, battered, and barely holding on. The Santa Maria capsizes. Truman is thrown into the water, the very thing he has feared his entire life. He is submerged. He is struggling. And from the control room, Christoph watches with an intensity that borders on madness. He is willing to kill Truman to keep him inside the dome. The man who claims to love Truman, who claims to have built this world to protect him, is literally trying to drown him rather than let him be free. And in that moment, every claim Christoph has ever made about caring for Truman is exposed for what it really is. It was never love. It was possession. And when the thing you possess tries to leave, possession shows its true face. But Truman does not turn back. He gets back on the boat. He ties himself to the mast with a rope so that even if the waves throw him again, he will not be separated from the Santa Maria. And there is a shot in this scene that people have written about for years. As Truman is tied to the mast, his arms stretched out on either side, his body battered by the storm. He looks like a man on a cross. Peter Weir framed this shot deliberately. Truman in that moment looks like a figure of sacrifice, enduring tremendous suffering for the sake of something greater than himself. He is suffering for truth. He is suffering for freedom. And he will not stop. Inside the control room, someone on the crew has had enough. The severity of what they are doing, the fact that they are actively trying to kill a man on live television, finally breaks through. Christoph is urged to stop, and eventually, reluctantly, he does. The storm fades, the water calms, the sky clears, and Truman, still alive, still tied to his boat, sails on. And then comes the moment. The bow of the Santa Maria strikes something. There is a sound, a dull thud, that makes no sense in the middle of an ocean. Truman looks up, and there, rising out of the water in front of him, is a wall. A flat, solid, painted wall. The sky in front of him is not real. It is a painting. The clouds are painted on. The blue is painted on. The horizon is painted on. The entire sky that Truman has looked up at every single day of his life is a massive curved wall surrounding the dome that contains his world. And Truman does something that breaks your heart and fills it at the same time. He reaches out and touches it. He puts his hand on the wall. He feels the flat surface where the sky should be. And in that touch, 30 years of lies become real. Every suspicion is confirmed. Every doubt is validated. The world he lived in was literally a set. The sky was literally a painting. Everything was literally fake. Truman steps off the boat and onto a narrow ledge at the base of the wall. He walks along it, his hand trailing across the painted sky, until he finds something. A staircase. A simple set of stairs built into the wall, leading up to a door. A plain, ordinary door with a handle set into the painted sky at the edge of the world. This is the exit. This is the way out. This is the door that was always there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look for it. Truman begins to climb the stairs, and that is when Christoph speaks. For the first time in the entire film, Christoph talks directly to Truman. His voice comes through speakers hidden in the dome, booming down from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He tells Truman who he is. He tells him that he is the creator of a television show, that has given joy and inspiration to millions. And then he makes his final argument. He tells Truman that the outside world, the real world, is no better than the one inside the dome. He says there is no more truth out there than there is in the world he created for Truman. He tells Truman that in his world, Truman has nothing to fear. He is asking Truman to stay. He is asking Truman to choose the beautiful prison. He is asking Truman to choose comfort over truth, safety over freedom, the known over the unknown. And this is the moment where the Truman Show becomes more than just a movie. Because this is a choice that every single person faces at some point in their life. Stay where it is safe, where it is comfortable, where the sky looks blue, even if it is painted on, or walk through the door into something you cannot see, something you cannot predict, something that might be worse than what you are leaving behind. Christoph is not wrong when he says the outside world is full of lies and pain. He is right. The real world is messy and cruel and unfair and unpredictable. But it is real. And a beautiful lie, no matter how comfortable it is still a lie. Truman stands at the door. He listens to Christoph. He takes it all in. And then he responds with the same words he has said every single day of his life, the same cheerful greeting he gives to his neighbors every morning in Sea Haven. He looks up toward the voice in the sky. He smiles, and he says, "In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." Then he bows, just like he always does, turns around, and walks through the door. That line, those words, they are the most important words in the entire movie. Because Truman is not just saying goodbye to Christoph. He is not just saying goodbye to Sea Haven. He is taking the script, the fake, manufactured, corporate-approved script that was written for him, and he is using it on his own terms. Those words were part of his programming. They were part of the character he was forced to play. And in his final moment, he turns them into something real. He turns them into his own farewell. He takes the cage and makes it a key. He takes the lie and makes it true. And then he walks out, and the screen goes black. We never see what is on the other side of the door. We never see what happens to Truman next. And that is the point. Because freedom does not come with a guarantee. It does not come with a preview. It comes with a choice and a step, and then whatever happens next. And what happens next is yours to figure out. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the movie is not just asking Truman to walk through a door. It is asking you something too. Something personal. Something uncomfortable. Something that has nothing to do with a man in a dome and everything to do with the life you are living right now. Section 12. The door is in front of you. What the Truman Show is really asking. We have spent a long time inside this movie. We have looked at the philosophy behind it, the God complex of its creator, the weaponization of fear, the gaslighting of the people closest to Truman, the way his entire existence was turned into a product, the surveillance systems that predicted our modern world, the beautiful prison designed to keep him comfortable, the audience that consumed his life without thinking twice, the real people who believed they were living inside their own version of the show, and the escape that turned a terrified man into a free one. We have pulled apart almost every layer of the Truman Show. But there is one final layer left, and it is the most important one. Because this layer is not about Truman, it is not about Christoph, it is not about Sea Haven or the dome or the painted sky. This layer is about you. The Truman Show was released on June 5th, 1998. That is almost 28 years ago. And in those 28 years, the world has changed in ways that make this film more relevant today than it was the day it came out. In 1998, most people did not have the internet in their homes. Social media did not exist. There were no smartphones. There were no algorithms deciding what you should see when you open your phone in the morning. There were no curated feeds showing you a version of reality that was designed to keep you scrolling. There was no Instagram, no TikTok, no YouTube, no Twitter, no Facebook. The idea of living inside a manufactured reality, of being surrounded by things that looked real but were actually constructed to influence your behavior, that was science fiction. That was a movie. That was a Jim Carrey film that people watched and thought was clever and creative and maybe a little far-fetched. It is not far-fetched anymore. It is Tuesday. Think about how you start your day. Most people wake up and the first thing they do is reach for their phone before their feet hit the floor, before they brush their teeth, before they say good morning to anyone in their house. They pick up a screen and they start consuming. And what do they consume? A feed. A stream of content that has been selected, sorted, filtered, and arranged by an algorithm. A system designed to show you the things most likely to keep you engaged. Not the things most likely to be true. Not the things most likely to be important. Not the things most likely to help you live a better life. The things most likely to keep you looking at the screen. The things most likely to make you react, click, share, comment, argue, or scroll for just a few more minutes. That feed is your sea haven. It is a world that has been built around you, customized for you, and designed to keep you inside it for as long as possible. And just like Truman, you did not ask for it. It just appeared. And because it has always been there, because it is all you know, you accept it as normal. Now think about the people in your feed, the influencers, the creators, the personalities, the celebrities. You see them every day. You watch their videos, you read their posts, you see their homes, their meals, their vacations, their outfits, their opinions, their relationships. You feel like you know them. You feel connected to them. You might even feel like they are your friends, but they are not your friends. They are performing. Every video is edited. Every photo is filtered. Every caption is crafted. Every moment you see has been selected from dozens or hundreds of moments you do not see. You are watching a highlight reel that has been designed to look like real life. You are watching Sea Haven. You are watching a world that looks perfect and warm and inviting and real, but that has been constructed from the ground up to create a specific feeling in you. And that feeling keeps you watching. That feeling keeps you coming back. That feeling keeps you inside the dome. And the product placement that the movie warned us about? It is everywhere. In 1998, The Truman Show showed Meryl awkwardly pitching cocoa and kitchen tools in the middle of real conversations, and audiences laughed because it was so obvious, so ridiculous, so clearly fake. Nobody would ever fall for that in real life. Except now, in the real world, product placement is so common that we barely even notice it anymore. Influencers promote products in the middle of personal stories. Sponsored content is designed to look exactly like regular content. Advertisements are woven into videos and posts so seamlessly that you often cannot tell where the real content ends and the ad begins. Meryl's cocoa pitch seemed absurd in 1998. Today, it is the entire business model of the internet. And think about the fear. Remember how Christoph used manufactured fear to keep Truman in Sea Haven? He staged a drowning to make Truman afraid of water. He put plane crash posters in the travel agency. He created traffic jams and fires and nuclear leak warnings to block every exit. Now think about what your screen shows you every single day. How much of the content you consume is designed to make you afraid? How many headlines are written specifically to trigger fear, anxiety, outrage, or panic? How many stories are selected not because they are the most important things happening in the world, but because they are the most frightening. Fear keeps people engaged. Fear keeps people clicking. Fear keeps people glued to their screens, checking for updates, refreshing their feeds, unable to look away, because what if something terrible happens and they miss it? The mechanism is the same. The scale is different. Christoph used fear to keep one man on an island. Our modern systems use fear to keep billions of people on their phones. And then there is the audience. Remember the people watching Truman from their couches and their bathtubs and their bars? Remember how they consumed his life without thinking about whether it was right? Look around. We live in a world where people broadcast their lives to strangers every day, where reality television takes real people and puts them in manufactured situations and films their reactions for entertainment, where social media turns every private moment into potential content, where a person's worst day can become a viral video seen by millions before they even get home. We are the audience in The Truman Show. We are the people on the couch, watching someone else's life unfold, feeling like we are connected to them, feeling like we care about them, and then asking what else is on the moment it gets boring. The movie tried to warn us. It laid out the entire blueprint: surveillance everywhere, product placement woven into daily life, fear used as a tool of control, comfort used as a cage, audiences consuming real human lives as entertainment, manufactured realities that look so convincing, people forget they are manufactured. Every single thing The Truman Show warned about in 1998 has come true. Every single one. The only difference is that there is no Christoph sitting in a control room in the moon. There is no single person running the show. The system runs itself. The algorithms adjust themselves. The content creates itself. The audience watches itself. The dome built itself around us while we were too busy looking at our screens to notice the walls going up. But here is the thing. The movie does not end with a warning. It ends with an escape. It ends with Truman walking through the door. And the reason that ending is so powerful is not because of what Truman does. It is because of what the movie is asking you to do. It is asking you to find your door. It is asking you to notice the walls. It is asking you to look at the sky and wonder if it is painted. It is asking you to question the things you have always accepted as true, and to consider the possibility that some of them were put there on purpose by people and systems that benefit from you never asking questions. Andrew Niccol wrote this film with a specific intention. He wanted to tell a story about a man who discovers his entire life is a construction. Peter Weir directed it with a specific vision. He wanted the audience to see themselves in Truman, to recognize their own complacency, their own passivity, their own willingness to accept whatever reality is placed in front of them. And Jim Carrey played Truman with a warmth and a vulnerability that made you root for him, not because he was a hero, but because he was ordinary. He was just a regular guy who started noticing things that did not make sense and had the courage to follow those questions all the way to the edge of his world. You do not live inside a dome. Nobody is broadcasting your life to millions of viewers. There is no Christoph in the sky controlling your weather. But the questions the film asks are still your questions. What parts of your reality have been constructed for you? What fears were given to you by systems that benefit from your staying put? What comforts are keeping you in a place you have outgrown? What would you find if you stopped accepting the world as it is presented to you and started asking what is behind the painted sky? Christoph told Truman that there was no more truth out there than there was inside the dome. And he was partly right. The outside world is messy, it is confusing, it is full of lies and manipulation, and people trying to sell you things, and systems trying to keep you in place. The real world is not a paradise, but it is real. And a real, messy, imperfect, uncertain life that you choose for yourself is worth more than any perfect, comfortable, beautiful lie that someone else built around you. At the beginning of this video, I told you that the Truman Show argues that most people live inside invisible prisons. Prisons built by society, by media, by culture, by systems designed to keep us passive, comfortable, and consuming. And over the past 2 hours, I hope I have shown you exactly how the movie makes that argument. From Plato's cave to Christoph's dome, from manufactured fear to manufactured comfort, from product placement to surveillance capitalism, from the audience on the couch to the person scrolling through their phone. Every layer of this film connects to something real. Every message it delivered in 1998 has only become more true with time. In 2025, the Library of Congress selected The Truman Show for preservation in the National Film Registry, recognizing it as a film that is culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. 27 years after its release, the institutions that preserve the most important works in American history officially declared that this movie matters. And it matters because it is not just a movie. It is a mirror. It is a mirror that shows us the world we have built, and the world we have accepted, and the world we have stopped questioning. And it asks us, politely, gently, with a smile and a bow, whether we are ready to walk through the door. In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.